Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Jake Lyman in for David Reed. Happy draft day, Mr. Jake Lyman.
Thank you. Happy draft day. How's it going, Jared?
I am just fabulous. Just fabulous on this wonderful Fireball Hot Take Friday. And I got to start. We're starting on the draft. That we will constantly be monitoring the Twitter accounts of Frank Saravalli and of Elliot Friedman and of Pierre Lebrun, etc., as we continue on throughout the day. This is one of the more exciting draft nights. The Predators have the picks at 5, 23, and 26, and I'll be honest, I have not thought one bit about 23 or 26 today. But here's where I want to start. At the end of the day, the draft, while it's entertaining and it's full of everything that we really love about sports, opinions and gossip and drama and high stakes, but the draft is the means to an end. Again, it's every player says, well, it's not where you get drafted, it's what you do after you get drafted. And big picture, that's the truth. Rand Carthon one time tried to lecture the Titan reporters about, hey, this is one of the best nights of these kids' lives. And Mike Vrabel had to fire back. If this ends up being one of the best night of their lives, they probably didn't have a very good NFL career. And that is true. So the Predators are on the clock at number 5. And I'm just going to say it like this. I know who I want them to pick. I have a pretty good feeling who I think you guys want them to pick. Everybody's a little different here and there. But if the Predators are going to win the Stanley Cup within the next 10 years, and that's going to be increasingly more difficult if UC Saros doesn't actually become, good, it's going to be because of tonight. If they win the Cup in the next 10 years, it will be because of tonight. It's going to be because they're either going to use that number 5 pick on either the big boy forward of the future, or they're going to trade that pick and they're going to either get the big boy forward of the future via the trade, or more importantly, the big boy forward of right now via that trade. If they get this pick wrong in 5 years, when it's time for this player to be the Predators' number 1 center, or in the case of Porter Martone, their number 1 winger who's scoring 40 goals a season, then they will be a below average team. And we'll be looking for them to pick high again in the future so that we can wait another 5 years to see if that guy is going to be any good. Could they pull off some kind of crazy trade where they miss on this pick, but somehow, some way, Barry Trotz ends up duping somebody and they end up getting some superstar that has nothing to do with tonight? I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's not very likely. And do you really ever trust the Predators to have the stones to pull something daring like that off? Of course not. And I'm not going to be one of those guys to pretend that I've scouted James Higgins and Brady Martin or Porter Martone or any of them enough to say, this is who they should take. I am not Bob McKenzie. And I don't believe that you pass up on a 40-goal scoring winger just because you have to have a center, which is some of the argument or anything like that. All I can say about the Predators is this. They have to get it right. They have to get this decision right. There are a lot of decisions. No general manager is perfect. None. Howie Roseman of the Eagles drafted Andre Dillard in the first round of the NFL draft. No general manager is perfect. Nobody's right all the time, and a broken clock is right twice a day. But there are some decisions in sports and some decisions in life that you have to get right. For the Predators, this is one of them. They have to get this player right. Their scouting, their psychoanalysis, their medical staff, everybody has to get this right. They have to get the player right. They have to get the talent right. They have to get the work ethic and makeup right. And they have to get the plan for the player who they're going to take with the 5th overall pick. They're going to have to get that development plan right. And if they don't, regardless of what they do at 23 and 26, if they don't, barring a miracle, in 2029, we'll be sitting right here today having the exact same conversation, perhaps with a different general manager making the choice. The reason we all have strong opinions about this and the reason we care so much about it is because deep down inside, we all want the Predators to win. And when I say win, I don't mean, well, we want them to win a couple of playoff games and maybe just if we're lucky, get to the second round of the playoffs and then say nice season when the boys put their sticks in the air. No. We want the Predators to win the Stanley Cup. And we have had a little taste of that. Again, they didn't win the cup, but they got pretty darn close. And I think everybody knows there was a lot of luck that went involved into that run. It would be nice if the Predators, instead of having a group of really solid players, had one great player for the first time in the history of their franchise that they could really hang their hat on to be a difference maker. No disrespect to Shea Weber. So today is the day where the Predators must land that foundational piece for the future prize. This is, and again, I know it's 5, it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, which is probably where I would have liked them to have been. But this is the gift that they get and that we as fans get for having sat through that miserable season last year. And the Predators are determined, despite not really doing anything differently than they did a year ago, the Predators are determined not to have a repeat of last season. And I'm going to say this, as much as I don't really trust Andrew Burnett coaching this group, as much as I don't really trust Barry Trotz in fixing the lineup by getting a second line center or 2 right shot defensemen, which I think they need, at the end of the day, I do not expect the Predators this upcoming season to be as freaking bad with Steven Stamkos and Roman Josi and everybody else. I don't expect them to be as freaking bad this year as they were last year. So this is the one time you're going to get to pick high at the top of a draft. This is the one time. I've been on the radio here for 10 years. This is my 10th NHL draft. Now, some of these have mattered less because either they were picking at the end of the first round because they went to the Cup final, or because David Poile traded away the first round pick for Cody Franson and Ryan Hartman and things of that magnitude. But this is the highest they've ever picked since I've been on the air in 10 years. And again, when you're picking 5, it's not the same talent that you get when you're picking 1. And even if you were picking 1 in this year's draft, Matthew Schaefer and Michael Misa, they are not the prospects that Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid were coming into the NHL. That said, if they're going to win the Stanley Cup in the next 10 years, they have to get it right today. Now, what is getting it right? Today, there are a lot of different opinions about that. But I'm just here to tell you, if they're going to win the cup, they better get it right today. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Already a big trade, and it does somewhat involve the Predators. So we'll get to that one coming up next. The Noah Dobson trade has been made. He is headed to Montreal in exchange for a couple of first rounders. And I think there's a little tell that I guess maybe has me leaning one way over another. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
All right, so we're going to let you go with this one, DB. Big day ahead. We got a new CBA. We got a draft.
Yep.
What's going to be the biggest thing that happens today? When we talk to you next week, whenever we talk to you next, what would be the biggest thing that happened on Friday?
No, do I want to pull a Hail Mary here? How about Schaefer and Higgins wind up with the Islanders? There you go. Schaefer and Higgins wind up with the Islanders.
Wow.
Matthew Darsh going all Brian Burke on him. I love it.
Bring James Higgins home to the island. Find a way. Make it happen.
There you go. That was Dan Bernstein. I said Dan Bernstein. That was DB on series. Dennis Bernstein. There you go. I think Dan Bernstein was a teacher of mine in college. Anywho, Jake, I don't watch TV while I'm on the air, but today I guess is a different day, and I'm trying to get the TV on to the NHL network. This is like the one time that I would do that, and I'm struggling with that in and of itself. So, you heard right there the take on SiriusXM NHL Radio this morning. I believe, Dennis Bernstein says, I believe from the fourth period, I believe that the Islanders are going to end up with both Matthew Schaefer and with James Higgins. And it seems like the ability to make that move for the New York Islanders got a little bit easier today when they made the deal with the Montreal Canadiens to get 2 first-round picks and some, I heard Adam say, third, fourth-line guy. So some Scarbini and 2 first-round picks to be able to give up Noah Dobson. And it does feel like that is a move for them to try to load up to go get James Higgins. Now, I remember a couple years ago, 10 years ago it was, Boston had 3 picks in a row in the 2015 draft, and they were obsessed with a local kid, a defenseman out of BU by the name of Noah Hannafin, who's now obviously with the Vegas Golden Knights. And Carolina held the 6th pick, and the thought was, could the Bruins package the 3 picks to move up to go get Noah Hannafin? And we all know that the answer was no, and they took 3 bad players with those 3 picks in a row. Although DeBrusk isn't that bad, but, I mean, it was an unmitigated disaster with what they ended up doing. I say all of this because the Nashville Predators are not trading the 5th overall pick for the 16th and the 17th overall pick, because at this point, what good does 4 picks in tonight's draft, 16, 17, 23, and 26, do for the Nashville Predators? And I'd say that's nothing. But I can't rule out all the smoke. When it comes to the first 4 picks, it feels like we know Schaefer 1, Misa 2, Frondell 3. Now, that 4th pick, I think it seems like most people believe that's going to be Caleb Denoyer. It's not going to be James Higgins. It could be Denoyer, it could be Brady Martin, it could be Porter Martone. So Utah, who knows? And maybe that's where the Islanders are targeting with those 2 first-round picks and maybe more to try to get up to make the trade in order to take Higgins at 4 in front of the Predators. But what it really makes me think is it makes me think that because, again, those 2 picks, in my opinion, are not good enough for the number 5 pick, it makes me think that the Islanders don't think the Predators are going to pull the trigger on Higgins at number 5. I'll just say this morning when I woke up, I thought the Nashville Predators were going to draft James Higgins with the 5th pick. Everything I know about the Predators would make me think that Higgins is their guy. They have been looking for a number 1 center for years. They've been begging, please give us a number 1 center. Lord, please give us a number 1 center. Amen. And they've tried everything. Whether it's trading for Johansson or trading for Mike Fisher or going out and signing Matt Duchene and thinking he could play center. They've tried it all. So here's their shot where they're going to have the ability to. They're not trading back to 16. That's not going to happen. And not only that, the Predators as an organization, their head of scouting, David Kelty, he's a David Poyle guy. He's a Team USA guy. Higgins, Team USA. Last year, they drafted Teddy Stiga from Team USA. Peter Laviolette and John Hines were both coaches for Team USA. So they are big when it comes to Team USA, they're big on the Team USA guys. So I woke up this morning thinking this is the perfect guy for the Predators to draft, knowing what I know of the Predators. He profiles as a number one center. I know he's a little smaller, but he's not 5'2". He's 5'11". He had a good college season last year. He was a point per game guy, which is similar to that of Logan Cooley, who is the number one center in Utah right now. I heard Craig Button at TSN compare James Higgins to Nico Hischier, who went number one in 2019. And Nico Hischier is a good player. Not great, but he's good. And I say this because that's what I figured they were going to do. They've got an owner who's the former governor of Tennessee. This is a USA, USA, USA type of kid. Can't you just see the governor of Tennessee, the former governor, getting all excited about having the first or second line center on Team USA in the Olympics? Not next year, but in a couple of years. And yet, I can't get over the move the Islanders made for Dobson because they didn't want to pay him. That's what this all goes down to is Noah Dobson was a 30-point player last year. He was a 70-point player the year before that. He's 25 years old. This is kind of reminds me a lot of Ryan Johansson. They didn't want to pay him. So since they didn't want to pay him, they had to find somebody else to be able to pay him. So that I don't. But again, this does feel like a load up for Higgins. And I don't know if you make that trade for those two picks, if you're the Islanders, unless you think you're going to go get James Higgins. So I wondered when I saw that today. I said, the Predators are not dealing 5 for 16 and 17. And if they do, I'll go absolutely catatonic. You thought it was bad. Well, I guess catatonic would just, I would be so angry I wouldn't even be able to move. But I think a lot of people saw that and thought 5 for 16 and 17. And I believe Frank Saravalli put out there that some trade charts say that that's in between the 4th and the 5th pick. So what? We've sat here for years and we've been like, oh man, if the Predators could just pick high in the draft, if they could just pick high one time, if they could pick high in the draft just once. Well, now they're going to pick high. Now you want to trade it back? No, they're not doing that. They don't need 4 players that are going to be okay players, third line guys, second pair defensemen. They don't need that 4 years from now. So I think if there's any tell here, it's either that they know the Predators are not going to take Higgins at 5, and they're going to try to make a move with Philadelphia or Boston or somebody like that, or maybe they're trying to make a move for Utah at 4, thinking the Predators are going to take Higgins. But I think it's more likely than not that the Islanders are not going to be able to trade with Utah to get to 4, even with the draft picks that they do have. I don't see the Predators making a deal unless they get a freaking stud in return with that 5th overall pick. And I certainly don't see them doing it for 2 picks. And I do think the Islanders are going for Higgins. So my reaction to the trade is maybe this means all that smoke that's out there about Porter Martone, maybe that's legit. Maybe everybody knows the same way everybody knows the Islanders like Schaefer. Everybody knows the Sharks are going to take Misa. Everybody knows that Frondell's going to go 3 to the Blackhawks. Again, Arizona's kind of the wild card at 4, but it does feel like Caleb Denoyer is going to be the pick there. And everyone's wondering what the Predators are going to do. Maybe everybody knows the Predators are going to take Porter Martone. Maybe that's what this is about. And the Islanders are stockpiling picks that, again, we know the Predators are not going to take. And maybe they're doing that so that they can get to 6 or 7 to try to get James Higgins instead of trying to move up to 5 where the Predators are, because again, the arsenal that they have acquired, in my opinion, is not good enough for what it would take to get to number 5 and what it would get for me to move off of James Higgins with that pick. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on our program. So again, they better get it right, number 1. And number 2, I think the Noah Dobson trade is actually more about what the Predators might not do, take Higgins, than it is about what they may do, which would be trading with the Islanders to give them that pick for Hagans. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll hit some of your phones. Plus, the one thing, if the Islanders were to want to call when it comes to James Hagans, the one thing that I would demand in return, there's really two things I would demand in return. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What does that mean? It means it's time to celebrate with ice cold Fireball. Nothing goes down as smooth. Nothing tastes as great as ice cold Fireball cinnamon whiskey. It's the draft tonight. I will be watching, and I'll probably have to pour me a nice little Fireball shot right there if they do what I like at number 5. That's right. So get the Fireball shots ready for tonight. 5-23-26. Get them shots ready. That's Fireball cinnamon whiskey. Night to night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy Fireball cinnamon. Did James Hagans' college season turn you off? Apparently, the reason he's been falling, Bob McKenzie ranked him before the year as the number 1 prospect. Now we're seeing some mock drafts. He's at 8, he's at 9. And there's a thought that, and I heard what you said when asked about his size, saying like, hey, There's some really good small players in the NHL, but
absolutely.
did his college season turn you off? Because apparently that's what has rubbed some teams the wrong way.
Well, I didn't see him. I saw him twice, maybe in college this year, maybe once. But I saw him at the World Championships, and he was good. He was really good. He had, I think, one game that I could say that was pretty average for him. But a lot of people will say, he was playing with two pretty good players. Well, if you're at his age and you're playing with two players like Leonard and Perreault, I mean, they're good players to make you look good, as a lot of people say. But you got to be a good player to play with them. So I'm on the other way with him. So, every year there's a guy that falls. I think last year it was Cole Eiserman. I think he was a guy that was ranked number one. I think it's a little bit of a curse being ranked number one if maybe you're not a generational talent. And those guys get picked to death. I mean, James Higgins is going to be a good player in this league. He is. And I think those players get the curse of when you're not necessarily a generational player, the scouts pick you apart to the point where you just start to fall a little bit. And I know he's a good player.
There you go. That was Barry on our show, Fireball Hot Take Friday. By the way, I will say this. I did have, and we will get into this later in the program, I did have ChatGPT analyze what Barry Trotz said. The James Higgins cut, we took a Martone cut, we took a Higgins cut, and I asked ChatGPT, I said, tell me what to make of this. And it was pretty conclusive what ChatGPT took from what Barry Trotz said. But you'll have to hear later in the program when we get into that what exactly it said. 615-737-1025. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Let me just say this before we get to your phones. As far as the Islanders are concerned, the trade, if they were to call me with the 5th pick, we'd have to start with Matthew Barzal. That would be the first thing. Yesterday, Adam Vignan told me that it would take number 5 in order to get Noah Dobson. And I said, no, thank you. But if you called me at 5 and you said, I'll do whatever it takes, Jared, to get James Higgins, because I am going to take James Higgins if I'm on the clock at 5. If it goes the way I think it's going to go, again, which is Schaefer, Misa, Frondel, Denoyer, and I'm on the clock at 5, it will be James Higgins. That will be the pick if I'm the general manager. That said, if New York calls and says, Jared, what will it take? We are starting at Matthew Barzal. Now, Barzal is 28 years old, and he does have some trade protection, and I don't know exactly what the trade protection, because I think it's like a 22-team list that he can refuse a trade to. So I don't know if that's me or not. Like, does that mean that I can't trade that? He comes in at $9.1 million. So either they need to retain something, or I'd send back, a Michael Bunting or somebody that carries a cap hit. Look, you're going to have to take back this money because I'm not going to be able to take on the full $9.1 million and then still be able to take care of my lineup or whatever. But that's what it would start off with. He signed through 2031. He's 28 years old. And again, we were talking about how, hey, if Trotz comes up here and says, to his old pawpaws, hey, I'm really rebuilding. I'm focused on the future. Stamkos and those guys would get all upset. Well, what if I say, hey, I just traded for Matthew Barzal, 28 years old. Guy's basically a 70-point per season guy. But that's not all. I'd want next year's one, and I'd want it to be unprotected. And I try to get one of the 2 picks out of them for this year on top of that. Think 17. So as of right now, if the Islanders called, Jared, what would it take? It would take Matthew Barzal. It would take your 1 unprotected next year, and it would take 17. That would be the trade. And you may not like that trade. I already see Adam Vignan texting me. He may not like that trade. He may think that's too much. I don't know. I'm just telling you that's what it would take for you to give me, or for me to give you James Higgins. That's what it would take. 615-737-1025 here on the program. And again, I don't know if you're part of the 22 teams that Barzal can refuse a trade to or not. And that's one where, again, I do think Trotz could probably work with him and say, like, hey, we have Stamkos, Marchessault, Forsberg, O'Reilly. Like, we're trying to win. Yossi, Saros, even though I hate Saros, but we have those guys. We're trying to win. And I think Trotz may be able to get through to him. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matt is going to kick us off today here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Matt, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared. So I was just curious, I definitely think they got to use that first draft pick at number 5 overall, but I really think you got to look at what you can give up in those later draft picks, but to like what you can actually get. Is it, how big, can you give up the 23rd, 26th, and the 34th to get a better player, or do you just give up one first rounder, or do you how do you package that? What are you thinking is to get the best payout?
Okay, so it depends on what player do you want.
So I mean, I just think if you're wanting to get a play now player, so does it take just one first round draft pick, or does it take 2 first round draft picks to get a player that you're going to see this year in Nashville?
Well,
you want to see
who do you want? You want me to trade for somebody that can play right now? Who do you want? Who do you want me to trade for?
That's a good question.
Okay, so I appreciate your call. So, if you want me to trade for Rasmus Anderson, because if I'm trading for Matthew Barzal, I'm also trading for Rasmus Anderson. And so if you want me to make that trade, and also, by the way, Callum Ritchie, who was a first rounder a couple of years ago here in Nashville, he's a young centerman who the Islanders acquired, I believe, from the Avs, maybe. They acquired him at the deadline. He could also be in play as far as that trade is concerned. But it depends on who you're asking me to acquire. If you're asking me to acquire Matthew Barzal, now the 5th pick has to be involved. You can't trade 23 to get Matthew Barzal. Rasmus Anderson wants out of Calgary. And Rasmus Anderson is a right shot first pair defenseman. Now, Noah Dobson was 25 years old. Rasmus Anderson is not. Noah Dobson has had a 70-point season. Rasmus Anderson has not. And Rasmus Anderson's going to need a new contract, but it's not going to be as big as Noah Dobson's, and it doesn't kick in until next year. So my guess is if I'm acquiring Matthew Barzal with the 5th pick, and then I pick up the phone and say, okay, I want to call Calgary and I want to make the deal for Rasmus Anderson, I do feel like I have a better shot now at acquiring Rasmus Anderson and him wanting to come to Nashville and sign an extension if I have Matthew Barzal on my team. But again, they're probably going to ask me for 2 first-round picks. Now, you may be able to get it for 1, but I don't know the answer to the question you're talking about, which is if I want to make a trade for a player who plays today, well, just think about your team. If somebody called you today and asked for Philip Forsberg, what would that cost? And it wouldn't be the same as Michael McCarron. But both Philip Forsberg and Michael McCarron are going to play in the NHL this year. So the question is, what player do you want me to trade for? And then can I pay that player? Let's go to Adam in Portland, who's up next here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Adam, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
I wouldn't care who. I don't want anybody. It reminds me, I've used this comparison of the show Alone, where somebody will kill a big animal and they have all this meat and they still come and do a health check and they kick them out because they haven't been eaten. So it's like Barry, you got to eventually spend these picks, man. Like you keep telling me over and over that we've stockpiled picks. Well, it's time to get younger. It's time to get these players. You said 10 years you haven't had a pick this high. You got to spend the pick. There is nobody that these guys could try to. They're not going to. Of course, there's a couple of guys in the league that you would take for that, but realistically, there's nobody that you could get to get up and get number 5 away from me, man. Like you gotta start somewhere. This is it. You get rid of the other 2 picks. I don't care about the other 2 picks, but you can't get off of 5, dude. Not one bit.
I think there's probably about 25 players. Thank you for the call. Adam, I think there's about 25 to 30 players in the league who I think you would trade the number 5 pick for. And it may be a little bit more than that, but you would trade the number 5 pick for Nathan McKinnon. You would. You would trade the number 5 pick for Alexander Barkov, Matthew Tkachuk. Would you trade it for Sam Bennett? Probably. I mean, I keep going back to Will Smith. This is what I want to know when it comes to San Jose, which is how much do they love Will Smith? Because 2 years ago, they picked him number 4. They loved him. Well, now that they're going to have Macklin Celebrini on their team and they're going to have Michael Misa on their team, do they still love Will Smith? That's one that I'd have a little bit of interest in. 615-737-1025. We have a report about the Islanders and how you may not even factor into any of this. We'll get to that and your phones. We'll do it next. 615-737-1025. Fireball Hot Take Friday at Stillman & Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game. I saw a report from Greg Wyshynski about your former club, the Islanders, wanting to try to find a way to trade back to take James Hagan so that they can have their cake and eat it too. And I think I saw the report said something like, well, they also have an extra first round pick at like 24th overall. And I'm like, don't think that's going to get you up to number 5.
Yeah, no, it won't.
But if they called and they said, hey, we'll give you Matthew Barzal. We're tearing it down. We're going to put Barzal and Noah Dobson out there. then would you be amenable to trading the 5th pick for a Matthew Barzal, who in 2028, 2029 will be north of 30? But right now, is if you were looking to contend right now, would be exactly, I think, the kind of player you'd want to add.
Yeah, I think I had Matthew, but I think it's a little bit hypothetical, and I don't like to talk about other teams. But you get a top player at that 5th position, you can turn that player. He can take care of business now, and the fact that you could probably move him to get back in that position would be something like that. But I don't want to talk about any other players. It's a little hypothetical. Plus, it'll get me in a lot of trouble in the league. So, but no, if you get a top player for a top player, then you have to at least think about it.
Okay, Barry, he didn't want to talk about hypotheticals, but here we are again talking the Islanders. So we have a report, and the report comes out via Cam. Again, I don't know exactly who this is, but they got a little check mark, and not the good kind, not the old, blue check mark that mattered. But this is I believe a Elite Prospects. This is Cam Robinson, who has a tweet out there saying, quote, "The Islanders are making a serious push to get another pick in the top 10, with number 4 being the focus. Picks 16 and 17 are in play. One source indicated that Islanders owner John Ledecky would approve nearly anything in order to get James Higgins." Why do you think they're targeting 4? Is it because they know the Predators are going to take Higgins at number 5? There's Trotz right there. Barry Trotz basically telling you that if you talk to him about Matthew Barzal, he'd have interest. Unless I heard that incorrectly. And, when he said, well, I don't want to get into hypotheticals, and I had Matthew in there, but, if you got the opportunity to get a top player and you got a top pick, you have to consider that. It sounded to be like, hey, yeah, I'd be open to talking Barzal. So Barzal, you're unprotected first, and Callum Ritchie. Let's do it. Or 17. Ritchie or 17, you pick. And then the way they'd look at it is it would be Barzal plus their first rounder next year in order to get James Higgins. And I guess half of Noah Dobson. I don't think they do that, but we shall see. And again, we don't even know if you're on the 22-team list that Barzal has trade protection for. But I'm just telling you right now, Barzal, to me, for what this team is trying to do, we're trying to be good now, but we're also trying to be good in the future. Barzal might be exactly what you're looking for, because he makes you better today. He makes you much better today. And at $9 million for a 70-point player. Remember, Elias Lindholm last year signed for 8 by, I think, 8.5. So for the money that a little bit more, you're getting a guy who's been a point-per-game player at times in his career in the NHL. And he would be your number 1 center, and whoever you play next to him would be your top line. So if they keep Forsberg, O'Reilly, and Marchessault together, then that would be the second line, because Stamkos and Barzal, and I would assume with Michael Bunting, would probably be your top line. And I actually like Michael Bunting as the third guy on that line to get his rear end in front of the net, let Barzal do his thing, and Stamkos, you fire those one-timers. I actually kind of like it. Let's go to Bob in Antioch, who's up next here, 615-737-1025. Bob, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting.
On NHL.com, a reporter named Adam Kimmelman predicts that the Predators might be taking an 18-year-old, 6'5", 198-pound center named Roger McQueen. And I don't know if you know anything about him, but
sure.
The writer says that McQueen is a scorer who also plays with the mean streak. But this is what I want your comment about. The reporter says, most importantly, McQueen says he's fully healed from a fracture in his back that limited him to 17 regular season games. So how do you feel about a player with that sort of an injury? Would you be very apprehensive about that? I'm curious.
Bob, good call. Jake, if you could, we actually did ask Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz brought up Roger McQueen as a wild card in this year's draft. And I actually did have ChatGPT analyze what Barry Trotz said about McQueen, because when I heard him talk about McQueen in the back, And you'll hear the little back and forth where Trotz talks about the medical. So let's play the cut, and then I want to react to it and tell you what ChatGPT said.
To me, the wild card in this whole two wild cards that you just mentioned is Roger McQueen. I mean, if you really look at him, he's 6'5.5". Teams are projecting him to could be a number one center. There is some question on his back, but I think hopefully that's all been taken care of in terms of all the medical and all that.
Hopefully, shouldn't you have the answer to that right now?
I do have the answer to that. I know a lot of good things. I mean, in track, he's a sprinter. So he's got good genetic genes. If you're that big and you're running sprints, that you're a good athlete.
Have you ever met somebody that had a bad back before?
Yes.
I've never met somebody that's had a bad back. I only know people that have bad backs. I worry about backs.
I do too. And where there's studies on body type, different people have more constant back pain with certain body types, all that. So we're looking at all that. But to me, when you throw out all those names, one of them will probably be a Predator next year. And the two wild cards that to me is trying to get a gauge where they're going to go is a guy like Martone and McQueen.
Okay. So what I hear with that is there could be a wild card trying to figure out where they're going to go for us, knowing that they're not going to us, specifically McQueen. ChatGPT said, and put a giant red exclamation point with the quote from Trotz, hopefully all that's been taken care of medically. You even heard me say, well, hold on, wait a minute. Haven't you seen the reports? Like you're talking about it like you're me. Like, well, if the doctor is clear as bat, no. You've seen it. You've talked to the doctors. You have the info. We don't have the info. And even Trotz is like, I do. And ChatGPT said he even admits concern when you say, I worry about backs, and he replies, I do too. So I do not think the Predators are in on Roger McQueen. So go ahead and take that one off the list. Both I and ChatGPT from that cut from Trotz believe that Roger McQueen is out. Colin says, Jared, you mentioned the USA hockey connections between Hines and Kelty go deeper. Both Hines and Kelty have Boston University connections. Nashville has plenty of BU connections. Hagens thus makes sense. The problem is that Hagens doesn't play at BU. Hagens plays at BC. Those are two very different colleges. My sister went to BU. I'm telling you, those are different. But I do hear your point. But again, the Predators love the Team USA thing. And again, I'll just keep saying this because even though Bill Haslam is not an in-your-face Republican, he is the former Republican governor of Tennessee. And is there nothing that shouts Fox News more than just a USA, homegrown USA type of player? Yeah, I was watching Fox News one time, and they had a commercial about some clothing company. Don't even remember who it was. And it was all about, we're proud to be made in the USA. USA. The finest pants made in the USA. And again, not that Bill Haslam is, one of those kind of guys, and he seems very apolitical outside of his political career. But again, USA. I think there's something to that. Robbie Stanley is anti-Matthew Barzal. He says he gets hurt too often. So I did look at that earlier today, and Matthew Barzal did get hurt last year, but I'm willing to take the risk because while normally, and I don't know, like if he's still hurt or whatever, but as long as it's not something that's like degenerative or anything like that, I am willing to take on the potential injury risk for a guy who is clearly a number one center in the NHL. Let's see. Barzal played 30 games last year with a kneecap injury, 80 games the year before that, 58 games the year before that, 73 the year before that, and then that's when you get into all the COVID years and things like that. Again, 2 years ago, he was an all-star, and he had an 80-point season. Again, that's what you hope. That's what you hope James Hagens becomes, right? One texter says, thank God John Robinson isn't the Predators general manager because McQueen sounds like his type of player. Neil says no to McQueen. He broke his back. I heard when Scott Wheeler was on the midday show, Scott Wheeler talked about how he said something along the lines of like, yeah, it's really been like a 2.5-year injury, but the back injury got misdiagnosed. No, I'm out. No, thank you. And I could see McQueen drop because even though he's 6'5", got talent, got the, again, back injury, we're all sitting here saying, no, thank you. Imagine if your career was on the line making that type of pick. 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. So I did a dive in on James Hagan's college season at BC and where it compares with other guys statistically. So I want to hit on that. We'll do that coming up. And then there's the Porter Martone stuff. Again, we've been talking about Hagens, Islanders. But there is the Martone element here that I do want to get to. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We are 3 hours away from the draft show, draft night in Smashville, live at Bridgestone Arena. Max Hers, Robbie Stanley, coming up at 6 o'clock. Here's what we know. Again, and I say no, I use that word, I would say rather loosely here, right? Again, we don't know anything, but here's what I think we know. Number one, Matthew Schaefer is going to the New York Islanders with the first overall pick. Number two, Michael Misa is going to the San Jose Sharks with the number 2 overall pick. It does feel very likely that the Chicago Blackhawks are going to select Anton Frondell with the 3rd overall pick, which then puts Utah on the clock at 4. Now, I have been told Utah is out as far as James Higgins is concerned. If I had the pick at 5 and I were the Predators, and let's say Caleb Denoye goes with that pick to the Utah Mammoth, then I would select James Higgins 5th overall. That, again, that's my own personal opinion. But what we know, again, Schaefer, Misa, Frondell, move them off. What we now know, according to Cam Robinson at Elite Hockey Prospects, the Islanders will do whatever it takes, according to the owner, to try to get back up and take James Higgins, targeting Utah with the 4th overall pick. Now, I don't know what Utah would be interested in. Now, I don't think Utah would have any interest in Higgins because they already have Logan Cooley. But I also, again, seeing that speculation makes me think if they're trying to get to 4, it's because they think the Predators at 5 are going to take James Higgins. The other thing we've heard a lot about is the Porter Martone Nashville Predators connection. Jake, if you could, Barry Trotz was asked about Porter Martone earlier this week, but I keep going back to all of the speculation. Scott Wheeler at The Athletic says he keeps hearing a lot of Nashville and Martone. Has Martone mocked to the Predators with the 5th overall pick in his latest mock draft, even though he's got Higgins just a little bit ahead of Martone, and said if he was in the Preds draft room, he'd be banging the table for James Higgins. Then there's the ESPN.com mock draft, which has the Predators taking Porter Martone. So again, Barry Trotz was asked about Porter Martone on Tuesday. Keep in mind, Porter Martone, unlike almost everybody else, is not a center. Here's what Barry Trotz said.
I want to ask about a specific player. Porter Martone, a really physically gifted player, great offensive player, but he doesn't play center. He plays wing. Yep. How much does that matter to you, the position versus the skill the player brings?
Well, there's a little bit more, probably a little bit more need, but if that player is available, you can look at past drafts. I think I can't remember Brady Tkachuk, player that went before Brady Tkachuk. If you look at where it is now, they would probably want Brady Tkachuk based on where players go. So we're going to look at the best player. And if there's a big discrepancy, then position won't matter. But if there's very little, then we'll probably go a little more position. That's all. But okay. That'd be a great pick at 5.
So let's go back when it comes to the Predators. Let's go back again to the Martone thing and how everybody keeps saying they're hearing Porter Martone to the Predators with that 5th pick. I'm trying to figure out, is this a smokescreen or is this real? On one hand, I just don't see Barry Trotz being the smokescreen type of guy. If Barry Trotz loves a player, you're going to know Barry Trotz loves the player. Again, he kept coming on the show last year, telling us up and down, he loved Soros. He loved Soros. He wanted to sign Soros. He loved Soros. He wanted to sign him. He was his guy. And it was like, well, does he really mean that? Or is he trying to drive up the price for a trade? No, he meant it. Even though I didn't love it, he meant it. When it came to John Hines, we just all assumed that he was going to keep John Hines, even though he kept saying, hey, I'm evaluating again. He told you. And then he fired him. When has Barry Trotz done something in the 2 years he's been running the Predators? When has Barry Trotz done something that has just had your jaw hit the floor? Even when he went out and added Luke Shin and Ryan O'Reilly and people were, I thought we were rebuilding. Why are we getting all these old pawpaws? And I'm like, Barry Trotz's first interview he did, he said, I would never get rid of Ryan McDonough. He's a serial winner. So he told you what he wanted to go get. I wasn't shocked when they got rid of Matt Duchene. So again, when it comes to the Martone thing, it's either a smokescreen or the Predators really, really, really love Martone, and they don't care what Utah does it for. Denoyer, Hagens, whomever. Martin, it doesn't matter to them because they are with that pick. They're going to take Porter Martone. But I have a hard time getting there on Martone, not because I don't like the player. I mean, he is a big boy. He is a first-line winger. Think of a Mikko Rantanen type player, though. I'm not the biggest Mikko Rantanen guy in the world. But think of a big finishing forward. That's what he is. And again, 40 goals is 40 goals. So if he comes up into the NHL and by year 3 or 4, he's scoring 40 goals a year, who cares if he's a winger or a center? Now, I would prefer he be a center, but again, if he's a winger, a Leon Draisaitl, whatever. The point being that it's not like these people are making this stuff up. But I just don't see the Predators as the type of team that tries to smokescreen anybody. Again, my prediction this morning was that the Predators were going to draft James Hagens. Now, all the New York Islanders stuff is starting to throw a huge wrench into that, because if New York gets to 4 with Utah and they end up making the pick, it will be Hagens, and then you can't take Hagens. But I'm trying to figure out, when it comes to the Martone stuff, is it a smokescreen or is it not? Again, I just don't see the Predators, especially Trotz. I just don't see Trotz as the smokescreen kind of guy. Now, what Scott Wheeler's going off of, and what everybody else is going off of, is this belief that the Predators scouted Porter Martone very heavily. But did Barry specifically scout Porter Martone heavily? Or was that, the Preds sent a scout to go to his games? They could have had somebody that lives in the area. Again, I don't know. But I'm trying to figure out, do they really love Porter Martone? And then I go back to the wild card comments where he said Martone and McQueen were the 2 wild cards that could really shake up the first round. And I thought to myself, well, if you're talking about the wild cards that could shake up the first round, that's because they've gone over this the same way we have. They do mock drafts inside the draft room where they're like, okay, here are the first 3 that go. And then Brady Martin goes 4. Who do we take at 5? Hagens goes 4. Who do we take at 5? All their decisions are made for them. So now when they're on the clock at 5, they know who they're going to pick. But when they're doing that, they're talking about the wild cards. And the wild cards, Trotz said on this program, are McQueen and Martone. Well, if he's a wild card of, wow, this could really shake up the top part of the draft, then wouldn't it be a guy you're not going to take that would be a wild card that would affect you? So I'm kind of starting to lean more out on the Martone front, even though, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't take Martone. I'm just out in the belief that they really love Martone just based off of the tea leaves. And let's not forget the fact that they've all been bemoaning for forever that they need a number 1 centerman. One texter says, this draft is so frustrating picking at 5. Agreed. But it's also a lot more fun. You know, the Titans had the number 1 pick of Cam Ward, and it was like doing the show. I'm like, oh, this is, again, I don't want to say it's not fun, but it's just, you knew who they were going to take. I knew who they were going to take. So let's talk some more about Cam Ward Whereas when you're sitting there at like 6 or 7, there's all these options and trades, and you could trade and they could trade and they could. It actually makes the draft night itself, in my opinion, more fun. 615-737-1025. We'll hit on some phones. Plus, Corey Curtis, News 2. What does he think, reading the tea leaves, the Predators are going to do tonight? And what about the NHL roster as far as the Predators are concerned? We'll hit on that with Corey next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, apparently my Matthew Barzal take, the fact that, hey, if I am the Predators and the Islanders are so desperate to get up to number 5 to take James Higgins, and by the way, I would take James Higgins if I were the Predators at number 5, but I guess Islander fans are mad because I would say in order to get to 5, you'd have to give me Barzal, again, I don't know if you're on his 22 team no trade list or not. You'd have to give me Barzal. Then after Barzal, I'd want 17 in this year's draft, and I'd want your unprotected first next year because I think with all these rookies, you're going to be pretty bad. And so I'd like to have another top 10 pick in next year's draft. And again, some guy, these Islander fans on Twitter are like, this guy's just trying to get attention. This guy doesn't know this guy. And all I'll say is this. If the report is your owner would do whatever it takes to get Higgins, well, now we're talking whatever it takes. Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us on the program. Corey, the first 4 picks in the draft are in. It is going to be Schaefer at 1, Misa at 2, Frondell at 3, Denoye at 4. You are on the clock at 5. Who are you taking?
Probably Higgins, because you've been desperate for a center over a long time. And with him being a little bit older, he's probably on a little bit faster track to the NHL. So I like those. I like that combination.
So when it comes to Higgins, I heard Craig Button today at TSN say that I guess Higgins thinks he's ready for the NHL now. And Craig Button at TSN was like, he is not ready for the NHL. And Craig Button does not think that any player in this year's draft is ready to make the jump right away straight to the NHL. What do you make of the trade speculation? The Islanders, they love Higgins. He's a local kid. There's a report out there that the owner will do whatever it takes in order to try to get up and to take James Higgins. There was a report that came out within the hour that the Islanders are targeting number 4. They traded Noah Dobson for 2 first-round picks from Montreal earlier today. And so there's a thought that they could be targeting 4 to take Higgins. Do you think that is a sign that the Islanders think that if the Predators are sitting there with that 5th pick, that they will take James Higgins?
Yeah, I mean, I think if he's available there, it would be tough for the Predators not to take him. And yeah, I mean, everything says, that they're arming themselves to move up. But what do we know? I mean, Barry said it the other day. It's going to be very costly to get inside the top 10 because after the top 10, there's a drop off. And so, I don't think 16 and 17 is enough to move up into the top 10, probably. I mean, maybe it gets you to 9 or 10, but I don't know. And if you want to get up to number 5, because there's no way. I mean, let's be realistic. 8, 9, 10. Is Higgins going to 8, 9, or 10?
I mean, some mocks think so, but no.
I don't think so either. Not at that position. I don't think so. So I agree with you that it's going to take picks and an existing NHL player to get there, which isn't a terrible place to be. And I like the Barzal situation, but he is expensive. But I also like the fact that he's 28 years old. And so you think the next 4 years for him are probably going to be his prime.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, Barry Trotz has been kind of threading this needle. I basically had to pin him down on the program the other day and say, do you worry more about next season or 3 years down the road? And Barry, again, they're trying to thread the needle. They're trying to do both. They're trying to be good next year and be good in the future. I think one has to take priority over the other. He said next year's the priority. Do you think that's possible? That the Predators could actually have a good team next year and still be building for the future? And if so, what does that mean for your number 5 pick?
Well, I mean, sure. I think they can be good in eyeing the future because they've got some young kids that are coming up, and they need them to be good. They need them to be better than a lot of the young kids that they've had come up lately. They need to have some guys who are come up and they need new pillars. They need Roman Yossi's getting older. Forsberg is getting older. And so in 5 years, 3 years, they're going to need new pillars. And is this the 3rd time in team history they've picked inside the top 5?
I believe so, with Legwand and Seth Jones being the other 2.
Yeah, so you haven't had a lot of chances to make this pick and get this caliber of player. So while I understand making a trade for a good player in the NHL and for more picks, I also understand this is a chance to get a guy who's going to be one of your pillars for the next 15 years, ideally. And ideally, you don't get that chance again. So I think if you trade away this pick, it's hard to say you're building towards the future because you're playing for now.
Corey Curtis, News 2, is our guest here on the program. Do you buy the Porter Martone stuff? Scott Wheeler, the head prospect writer at The Athletic, keeps hearing Preds and Martone. ESPN's mock draft has the Predators taking Porter Martone, and it says all the scuttlebutt is the Preds and Martone. And yet, for a franchise that has been so desperate for a center for so many years, and Barry is as much a part of that as any of us in terms of feeling the need for a number one center, he's the one guy who doesn't play center, Corey.
Well, you know what? If he's the best player, though, and he's a forward, and he's an 80, 90-point guy for you, you still have to take him. I understand what you're saying, but you can't get so caught up in need that you pass up on a great player to take a shot on a guy. Because if you're going to do that, or if you're going to pass up on him and you're going to take a center, and I don't know, where do we rank the next center at? I mean, how far down the line is it? I mean, because you would probably need to trade down if you're really going to want to take a center at that point, unless you think there's another one worthy of being the fifth pick of the draft.
Well, I mean, I think that, again, the way this looks out is either Brady Martin or Caleb Denoyer is going with the fourth pick if Hagens is there. One of those two guys is going to be available. That guy is probably in that same trough as Martone
and
player.
McQueen's a center too, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's hurt. I mean, he's got an injury flag to him.
Okay.
But to Jake O'Brien, Martone, that second group of prospects after Schaefer and Misa, I think really does have a bunch of centers in there. I mean, the Predators are going to have a choice of a center if they want to take a center at 5.
Yeah, but I think they could also trade down and get in that group of centers, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't know that anybody would trade down. Like, you're talking about trying to trade down to 7 or 8, and I'm not sure that anybody through 7 or 8 is going to want to trade up to 5 as much as the reality of, hey, if you really like Jake O'Brien, just take Jake O'Brien.
Well, again, I'm going to say if you think he is that much better, I mean, if you are all in on Porter Martone being, hey, this guy's going to score 40 goals a year for us, then you still have to take him.
So I agree with that, but do you actually think that they think that, or do you think that it's all a smokescreen?
I think, no, I don't think it's a smokescreen, because I think this team does not have a history of reaching for centers in the draft. And I don't think, Barry is going to reach for a center in the draft, because, I mean, he's been adamant that we're going to get a good player. I mean, that's what he keeps saying. We're going to get a good player. And so I think he's more concerned with getting a good player than getting a positional need. Because, I mean, we all know they've needed to fill that position for a long time. But you still can't pass on if you think it's elite talent. Now, I heard what you're saying about that they've spent a lot of time looking at him and scouting at him. That also might be because they had more questions about him. Mm-hmm. So, there could be a million different reasons. It could be because he's the guy they really like and they wanted to button it up because they really like a center, but they might think he's too good to pass up on. So I would not put it past, Barry to draft a non-center at that position if that's what he believes. Oh, and by the way, as for Hagens and anybody else being NHL ready this year, we know Barry Trotz. He likes to let them marinate in Milwaukee. So if you're hoping to play in Nashville this year, you don't want to get drafted by the Preds, probably.
So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Barry Trotz about himself. Corey Curtis, News 2, with us. I asked Barry if he thinks he's on the hot seat. Barry said, I don't pay attention to that. I'm just going to do what's ever in the best interest of the Predators. Do you think Barry, after last year, is on the hot seat? And do you think that may guide his judgment, not just in the draft, but also with what they may do on July 1 when free agency opens?
Well, I think the big question here is Bill Haslam. I mean, we don't know a lot about Bill Haslam as an owner. So, it's hard to say that. He's a first-time GM. It's his first year at GM. I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I think if he has another year that doesn't work out like he hoped it would, then I think it puts him in a more precarious situation moving forward.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the clock right now. Now that we don't know who's going to get picked, and again, the latest report is that the Islanders are trying desperately to get to 4 to take Hagens. Your prediction tonight, who do the Nashville Predators select with the 5th overall pick?
Who's picking it for? Utah?
Utah.
First off, I got to figure out if they're going to trade.
You can make that prediction too.
Okay. You know what? I think if the Islanders are really desperate to move up, I think a new franchise like Utah can afford to stockpile picks. And I could see them making that trade. So we'll say they trade up to take Higgins. And so we'll take Martone. If I'm the Predators, we'll sit there and we'll take Martone and we'll be happy.
Boy, I'll tell you, if they pass on Denoyer, so let's say Higgins goes forward, they pass on Denoyer at center, they better be right when it comes to Martone, because Denoyer does look to be that kind of player. I think he's like 6'1".
Okay. Yeah.
So,
well,
I mean, this is the way I look at it. And again, I said this yesterday. You can't worry about the positional value. You have to take the best player. I think I'm in the camp of Higgins or Denoyer. That if I'm picking at 5, it's got to be Higgins or Denoyer. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Corey Curtis, News 2 with us. What's your hot take this week?
Is it a punishment for a guy who probably isn't going to be on a team for the first 8 weeks of the season to suspend him for 10 games?
Talking about Justin Tucker of the Ravens?
Yes. I mean, he's a 35, 36-year-old kicker coming off the worst year of his career. You know, somebody might have brought him in for camp, but he's more likely a kicker who's going to hold out and wait and see which contending team needs a kicker. And so now he just chills out for 10 weeks, works on his game, and waits for that team that will wait for him because they know they'll have him for the postseason. It's not much of a punishment.
Well, I look at it is what are you going to do? Ban him from the NFL for life? They won't ban Deshaun Watson. You're going to ban him?
Yeah, I mean, no, but you could suspend him for a year.
But they didn't suspend Deshaun Watson for a year.
No, they didn't. And, you know,
there's far more evidence of doing the same thing.
Yeah. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that punishment either. But I'm just saying, you know, where he is in his career is different than where Deshaun Watson was. And so he, you know, for him sitting out for a while, you know, he may have been sitting out anyway. It's not much of a punishment in my estimation.
I'll say this. I don't know if Justin Tucker is going to play next year, but I will say that if this didn't come down, he'd still be on the Ravens. So I think that might be the punishment in and of itself. Corey Curtis, News 2.
The fact, if Justin Tucker did not have the year he had last year, he'd still be on the Ravens as well.
Maybe, probably. Corey Curtis, News 2, as always on our program. Great stuff. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Enjoy the draft.
Yep, Corey Curtis, News 2, here on the program. 615-737-1025. More of your Preds calls. 615-737-1025. Plus, what about the actual NHL roster as far as the Predators are concerned? I got some thoughts on that. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
DB, who would you rather make a move on? Rasmus Anderson, who it looks like he could be had out of Calgary for a trade, or Noah Dobson? Different players. Dobson a bit younger, maybe more offensive upside, but also cost you more money to sign him, maybe more years as well. Anderson and Dobson, like who do you like out of those two, and why do you think pretty high end defensemen are getting shopped around by their teams?
Yeah, I'm not sure what Calgary's doing, to be honest with you. I mean, I guess Rasmus doesn't want to stay. Here's the thing, and you mentioned it, Johnny. What's Dobson at? Is he at 8 or 10? If he's at 10, that's a tough pill. I don't know if he's 10. He's not Evan Bouchard, right? So I would go towards Anderson because I still like the defensive part of the game. Look, if my offense is good enough, Johnny, then I would go with the defensive presence of Anderson. If my offense needs some help, I would go with Dobson. But at $10 million, that's a tough pill to swallow. 10 over, over 7. I'm not a huge Dobson guy, right? So I would lean towards Rasmus Anderson, knowing that there's going to be that cap hit is really nice, but that Rasmus Anderson, Johnny, 3 years ago would have been more valuable at that cap hit than today because of what we just talked about. $4 million? Oh, that's easy. We can do that, as a backstroke. I don't need to make moves to fit Rasmus Anderson in, and he's a quality guy, great in the room. So that's the guy I would lean towards because it's a high price ticket for Noah Dobson.
There you go. That was SiriusXM NFL Radio. That was Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period on earlier today. And the one thing I do want to talk about is what are the Predators going to do as far as the NHL team is concerned? Because as of right now, Craig Button at TSN, he said earlier today that not only is James Higgins not ready for the NHL, he said that nobody in this draft is ready for the NHL right now. Now, Noah Dobson is off the board. That trade, I saw a tweet from Pierre Lebrun, who said that the trade call is happening shortly, which would make the move official. But again, Noah Dobson is headed to Montreal, which means that Rasmus Anderson is still out there. I do wonder with these other two picks, 23 and 26, is Barry Trotz going to try to make the NHL team better with one of those two picks or maybe both of those two picks? Again, if Noah Dobson is worth 16 and 17, then is Rasmus Anderson worth, who, again, you heard right there, Dennis Bernstein says that he actually thinks Rasmus Anderson is better than Noah Dobson. So is he worth 23 and 26? And then you have to give him the contract. And would he want to come here in order for you to be able to make that deal? And would you want to commit to another core player? I heard the midday show, and look, I love Willie with all my heart. I do. But I thought this was selective parsing on the part of Willie Donick yesterday when the midday show was talking about the contracts. And Willie's like, what contracts are they locked into? All these guys have expiring contracts. McCarron has an expiring contract. Cole Smith has an expiring contract. Sissons has an expiring contract. Bunting has an expiring contract. Haula has an expiring contract. Like, I don't know, Willie. I don't know. Forsberg, Stamkos, Yossi, Soros, those players, those are the contracts. If you were to make the trade for Rasmus Anderson, are you willing to make another commitment in terms of a contract? Or do you just make the trade and partner him with Brady Shea and make that essentially your first defensive pair with Shea on the left and Anderson on the right? And if the team sucks again next year, then you flip him at the deadline for what you gave up to get him. I am wondering, again, if the idea of making the NHL team better, we're going to go for it this year, Jared. We want to bring the joy back to Smashville. If the way to do that is to keep Justin Barron in the lineup, or to tell me that Eric Haula or Fedor Svechkov is the answer as the second line center, then that ain't doing much for me. 615-737-1025. Brad has been waiting patiently and is up next here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Brad, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Jared. So I've been watching this team since day one, and it has been so painful to watch this team march out boatloads of number two centermen and say, this is our number one guy. We've never had one. And as much as I've wished that we've had a true number one, in this specific situation, I think if you're picking and you've got Higgins and Martone on the board, I feel like Martone is just too good to pass. He really is that big boy forward that you always talk about. When we get to the playoffs, That's something I feel like we've never had. And come playoff time, that guy's going to be a handful. And I think if both of them are on the board, I would love to have Hagens. I think he's going to be a great player in the NHL. But I do think in 10 years, you're going to look back and say, if you had a chance to pick Martone and you'd pass, I think it'd be a mistake. Thanks.
The question is, to your point, thank you for your call, Brad. I don't disagree with this. I mean, again, Matthew Tkachuk, for instance, and this was the guy that Trotz referenced when it came to not taking a center with that 5th pick. Matthew Tkachuk, over the course of an 82-game season, averages out for 81 points. So even though he's not a center, he's a left winger, he's still worth 8 points per game. And there are wingers like that who make a difference. Vladimir Tarasenko in 2019. Now, I know that the 2019 Blues are kind of the exception to the rule when it comes to the team that is dominated without having some just uber high draft choice, big boy forward lead their team that they took number 1 or number 2. Everybody else has a guy who was taken either number 1 or number 2 that was kind of leading their team at the center ice position. Barkov in Florida, Eichel in Vegas. I can go on. Again, Stamkos kind of a winger, but yes, Stamkos I guess would count. But Vladimir Tarasenko for the 2019 Blues, when he was in St. Louis that season and they won the cup, he was in 76 games a 68-point guy. Over the course of 82 games, though, he's only 65 points. If he's a Tarasenko, where he's a 65 points over 82 games, which is not bad. I mean, that's still a good career. If he's that kind of player, he's probably not worth the pick. If he's Patrick Kane, who, once again, Patrick Kane won 3 cups. If he's Patrick Kane, who was a winger, but was the first overall pick in the draft off the right wing, and Kane was in over 82 games, 85 points per big, again, basically a point per game guy. If he's that, then I'm totally fine with taking him. I'm just not completely sold that Martone is that guy or that he's that much better than the centers. That's the way I guess I would put it. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Caleb says Forsberg is a big boy forward, Brad. I hope he's joking. Forsberg would be a great second line winger. First power play unit, second line. If you had Patrick Kane on the first line. You can win with Forsberg on your first line, but he'd really be a much better fit as far as the second line is concerned. The thing I'll say about Forsberg is this, and I've felt this way for the last 10 years, and I like Forsberg. And again, a lot of the players around town don't like me. I actually do think Forsberg likes me. Forsberg over 82 games is a 72-point guy, so that's not bad. But the one thing I would say about Forsberg is, boy, he's streaky. And when he's hot, and this year he was not very good, but when he's hot, he can carry the entire team. He's like one of those hitters in a baseball lineup that when he's on, everything is a 3-run home run. Every time when he's on, he comes to the plate. It is a series-deciding, game-deciding, solo shot in the 8th inning. He's that kind of guy who you walk out of a 3-game set and it's like he hit 4 homers and 3 doubles and 9 RBIs. And he's just, when Forsberg is hot, it carries the team, and that is pretty good. Again, he had 94 points last year. Not this past season, but the year before that. Ooh, I'm watching this. I finally got NHL Network on. And the fact that NHL Network is doing like this behind the scenes, getting to know the prospects thing, as opposed to, what should be like a big, like some, hold on. Whoa. So I'm watching this thing right now. It's a combine special on NHL Network, something I haven't watched. And they just showed James Hagens walk into the interview room with the Predators. Can I go back on that? I don't think I can rewind on this. But Barry Trotz was not in the room. There were all these bald guys in there, but Barry Trotz was not one of the bald heads that I saw go shake hands with James Hagens. What do we make of that? I don't know. 615-737-1025. We're back to your phones. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company. Oh, and by the way, there may be another name into the kitty as far as potential picks with the 5th overall pick are concerned. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5. What is the game? Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you did not need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, that's because it is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover their costs for these discounted club memberships. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something that you do not need. You all hear me talking all the time about my friends at Hiller, but this is why I trust Hiller in my home. That's right. I absolutely love them. So do like I do and schedule online. I do it right on my phone. HappyHiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Of the teams that have multiple first-round draft picks, is there a team that you think is best positioned or likeliest to maneuver those picks in the first round?
I would say all of them would consider it. Like, I don't think you guys are doing anything with your 5th overall pick unless it's, maybe moving up or down at 1 or 2 spots. if the draft unfolds certain ways, but I expect you guys to use that pick in that area to draft a player. But the 23 and 26, right? Like, I could see Barry doing something with that. I can definitely see Pittsburgh doing something with 11, 12. I could definitely see Montreal doing something with 16, 17, and Philly as well. Like I have to tell you, Adam, we all know who's going 1. Schaefer's going 1 of the Islanders. Most people think Misa's going 2 to San Jose, if not him, Frondell. And then I think you're going to see, I think there's a lot of variance from there, Adam. Like, each team's lists are different. from that point on? Like, who do you have at 3, and then where are you going from there? So I absolutely do believe, depending on how this unfolds, you are going to see some teams move around.
Okay, that was Elliot Friedman yesterday on the Midday Show. Here's the one thing I'm going to say about trades as far as tonight is concerned, and everybody's keeping an eye on the Islanders who traded Noah Dobson, and now they've got 16 and 17. They also have their first rounder next year. They have Callum Ritchie, who is a young forward, a young center that they acquired at the trade deadline, and they have Colorado's first rounder next year that they can defer to that Colorado could defer to 2027. So they do have picks now that they've made the Noah Dobson trade. But the one thing I'm going to say about the trades, and I know the report is that the owner of the Islanders would be pretty much willing to do anything to get James Higgins to go along with Matthew Schaefer, who they're going to take number 1 overall. Don't we do this every year? When every year before the draft, we sit back and we're like, Pierre LeBrun is saying, and Frank Ciravalli is saying, and Darren Drager is saying, and Elliot Friedman is saying, and all these guys are saying, and then the Predators stick and pick. I remember the 2023 draft at Bridgestone Arena, and I remember how it was like a whole day of hold on to your tushies because there were rumors galore about the Predators and the San Jose Sharks. And ultimately, the Predators stood and picked. The Predators had 3 picks. I'm sure Barry's working the phones. I'm sure of it. But over the last couple of years, I've sat there on draft night saying, are they going to make a trade? Last year, I think all the talk was about Soros. So they're going to trade Soros at the draft, or are they going to sign him to an extension, or are they going to trade Askarov because they're going to sign Soros? What are they going to do? And they did nothing. Kind of feels that way today, where we're talking all about this, about who are they going to trade, or are they going to move up, or are they going to move down, or are they going to, and I think my gut tells me they're going to pick at 5, they're going to pick at 23, and they're going to pick at 26. That's just what my gut tells me. 615-737-1025 here on the program. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. A bunch of you want to get in as far as the Forsberg stuff is concerned, about him being a first liner. Forsberg is a first liner, but he needs to be your number 2 or number 3 on that line, ideally number 3. I think, again, Forsberg can play on the first line, but if you draft Porter Martone, the hope is that Porter Martone is that first line winger, and that eventually Forsberg drops down to number 2. Here's the other thing. If the Predators are going to get it right, if last year was just an aberration, which was kind of what Barry Trotz was trying to point towards when he was on the show on Tuesday, don't you think Steven Stamkos, again, I'm not saying 40 goals, but don't you think Steven Stamkos has to rebound to where he is a legitimate first-line winger, even though he's up there in age? Unless he's just a total lemon. And that could make things intriguing. And I do wonder when they factor in these plans about drafting. Again, I think you draft a guy, he's not really what he's going to be in the NHL for 5 or 6 years. And these guys are not signed. Stamkos is not signed for 5 or 6 years. But I do wonder how much they do take into account the current roster. They should not, whatever they do, they should not take into account anything when it comes to the current prospects they have. Like, I don't want to hear, well, we didn't take this guy because we got Matthew Wood and we think Matthew Wood's going to. No. For every 5 prospects you take that are not generational number 1 overall type players, for every non-McDavid that you draft, every 5 guys, 1 or 2 of them excel. That's it. 1 or 2. That's it. One texter says, way to kill the excitement, Jared, saying they won't trade. Hey, a lot of you people out there think that whenever I say something, the opposite of that happens. You know what, Jake? Jake, do you have access to the guarantee list?
I don't believe I do.
Well, you're going to need to figure this out. Text Ian right now because we're adding this to the guarantee list. I guarantee that the Nashville Predators will not make a trade tonight, and they will select at 5, 23, and 26.
That's a bold one.
Put it on the list.
All right, I'll let Ian know.
Do you think that they're going to make a trade tonight?
I just think it's more likely that they trade one of those picks than that they don't trade any of them.
They don't trade. They do not trade on draft night. I do not think we have had a Predators draft night trade in the 10 years that I have been doing the show here. I'm dead serious about that. And again, we've had some of those nights where it's a hold on to your rear end. They're all kind of different, though. It's actually odd when I keep thinking in my head about all the previous drafts. You know, I'll never forget after the Predators won the Cup final and they were like, draft coverage live from Chicago. And I'm like, who cares? You're picking towards the end of the – and they took Ellie Tolvanen and everybody was like, well, the Gurus had him ranked as the 4th best player in the draft. Well, okay, but the people that actually do this for a living did not. And then I'm trying to think some of the other ones. I remember the 2019 draft was all about going after Matt Duchene and were they going to trade PK Subban, and they traded PK Subban at the beginning of round 2, you know, the next day on day 2. So those things are always, you know, they're all different. When the Predators draft, I don't even remember the 2020 draft because I think it happened during the football season. The 2021 draft, I remember that was the competitive rebuild, David Poyle. The 2022 draft, Joakim Kimmel, they took him. I knew nothing about him. And as they drafted Joakim Kimmel, everybody on the ESPN broadcast was like, well, he's kind of like, he comps to be like Victor Arvidsson. And I thought, oh, God, no. No. Victor Arvidsson. Oh, God. Not that Arvidsson was bad, but, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. 615-737-1025. So it seems like there are 2 names when it comes to the 5th pick tonight. And let's parse what Barry Trotz said about those 2 names, and let's ask AI to compare and contrast what he thinks or what it thinks Barry Trotz is going to do. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So the draft starts as soon as we pop off the air. At 6 o'clock, the draft starts on ESPN on TV, and Robbie and Max will be live at Bridgestone Arena, and they will have draft night in Smashville, and it will be a long night for Robbie and Max as the Predators pick at 5, at 23, and 26. And I am just now looking at NHL Network, and so I'm seeing what the set looks like and everything else out there in LA. It looks very, very nice. And so with the Predators, we already know the first 3 picks are probably going to go as chalk. We expect Matthew Schaefer to go number 1 overall to the Islanders. We expect Michael Misa to go number 2 overall to the San Jose Sharks. And we expect Anton Frondell to go to the Chicago Blackhawks with the 3rd overall pick. That would put the Utah Mammoth on the clock at number 4. And there are rumors that the New York Islanders, who traded defenseman Noah Dobson today to Montreal in exchange for picks 16 and 17, would be looking to get up to number 4 to draft James Higgins out of Boston College. However, most people believe that if Utah sticks and picks at 4 overall, it will not be Higgins. I was told today by somebody I trust, somebody I'm connected to at Sirius, that Higgins is not going to Utah at 4. So with that, who knows? But that would lead the Predators at 5, with the assumption being that it'll either be Caleb Denoyer or Brady Martin, centermen, who are both 6 feet tall, picked at number 4 to Utah on the clock. And the big debate around here is the center from Boston College, James Higgins, or the big 6'3", 200-pound power forward who is not a center but is a winger, Porter Martone. And the thing about Porter Martone is he puts the little black puck in the little white net, which, of course, for those of you that are keeping score, that's how you win games. So, who will the Predators take if that's their choice? And let's stick for right now, because we didn't ask Barry in depth about Denoyer or Brady Martin, though Barry did say that compete level was very important to him, which The Athletic has said Brady Martin is the top choice as far as the best competitor in the class. So keep that in mind. But again, the 2 names that seem to everybody keeps coming back to, James Higgins and Porter Martone. So we had Barry Trotz on the show, and Barry Trotz held a press conference. And we did these back-to-back on Tuesday, where Barry met with the media, and then we talked to him right afterwards, and we ran the press conference. And this was a strategic choice that I made. I said, let's run the press conference so we can get all the press conference questions out of the way, and then we can go deeper with some of the other questions that we have. And so that's what we decided to do. In the press conference, he was asked about Porter Martone and the big forward who is not a center, and we know the Predators have been looking for a center forever. Here's what Barry Trotz said about Porter Martone.
I want to ask about a specific player. Porter Martone, a really physically gifted player, great offensive player, but he doesn't play center. He plays wing. Yep. How much does that matter to you, the position versus the skill the player brings?
Well, there's a little bit more, probably a little bit more need, but if that player is available, you can look at past drafts. I think I can't remember Brady Tkachuk, player that went before Brady Tkachuk. If you look at where it is now, they would probably want Brady Tkachuk based on where players go. So we're going to look at the best player, and if there's a big discrepancy, then position won't matter. But if there's very little, then we'll probably go a little more position. That's all. But that'd be a great pick at 5.
Okay. Then I asked him about James Higgins, given the fact that it seems like Higgins, who started the year as the number 1 prospect, has been falling down the boards, according to the gurus, because of the college season that he had at BC. Here's what Trotz said about Higgins. Did James Higgins' college season turn you off? Apparently, the reason he's been falling, Bob McKenzie ranked him before the year as the number 1 prospect. Now we're seeing some mock drafts. He's at 8, he's at 9. And there's a thought that, and I heard what you said when asked about his size, saying like, hey, there's some really good small players in the NHL, but did his college season turn you off? Because apparently that's what has rubbed some teams the wrong way.
Well, I didn't see him. I saw him twice, maybe in college this year, maybe once. But I saw him at the World Championships, and he was good. He was really good. He had, I think, one game that I could say that was pretty average for him. But a lot of people will say, he was playing with two pretty good players. Well, if you're at his age and you're playing with two players like Leonard and Perreault, I mean, they're good players to make you look good, as a lot of people say. But you got to be a good player to play with them. So I'm on the other way with him. So, every year there's a guy that falls. I think last year it was Cole Eiserman, I think. He was a guy that was ranked number one. I think it's a little bit of a curse being ranked number one if maybe you're not a generational talent. And those guys get picked to death. I mean, James Higgins is going to be a good player in this league. He is. And I think those players get the curse of when you're not necessarily a generational player, the scouts pick you apart to the point where you just start to fall a little bit. And I know he's a good player.
Okay. I believe, just listening to those two, I think he's leaning towards Higgins. Now, Scott Wheeler, The Athletic, everybody else, they say the Predators have been all in on Martone. So I ran this through AI, and I said, based on those two samples, who do you think Barry Trotz is leaning to? And this was the response, quote, based on the tone, language, and subtle signs in the two responses, Barry Trotz is leaning towards James Higgins over Porter Martone. What his comments on Higgins told us, a defensive tone. He's pushing back on the criticisms of why Higgins is falling in the draft, validating the performance. He uses his own eyes from the World Juniors to say Higgins was good. Emotional ownership when it came to James Higgins, quote, I'm the other way, signals a personal conviction and respect for the journey, acknowledges the scout fatigue and mental toll on a top-ranked player. This reads as, quote, don't overthink it, he's still legit. Trotz on Porter Martone, AI says. That would be a great pick at 5. If there's a big discrepancy, position won't matter. If it's close, we'll lean position. Conditional praise. Great pick if he's clearly better. Positional filter still matters. He's not ignoring the center need. He's just willing to override it if it is warranted. No personal conviction. There's no, I really believe in him in the tone. The end is more procedural than passionate. Again, that last part where he said, oh, that'd be a great pick at 5. Again, AI is saying that in the tone, no personal conviction. This reads as he's in the mix, but we need to be really sure. The conclusion, Trotz is leading towards Higgins. It says, Trotz sounds emotionally and philosophically aligned with James Higgins, and with Porter Martone, he sounds professionally open but non-committal. Prediction, if the board breaks clean, with Schaefer, Misa, and Anton Frondel going in the first 3 picks, and the Predators are sitting there at number 5, Trotz will take James Higgins unless Porter Martone is significantly higher on their internal board. So AI says, again, if these are the two they're picking between, and it does kind of feel, unless the Islanders get up there, it does kind of feel like that's who they're picking between. AI believes Barry Trotz is leaning towards James Higgins over Porter Martone. And I'm just going to say, again, for somebody who hasn't scouted these guys, I would prefer Higgins, a center, over Martone, who's on the wing. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, the college season that Higgins had at BC, how does that compare with other players in the league? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106.3 The Game.
Round out the top 5 for us here. You got the Nashville Predators, Craig, who have not picked in the single digits in more than a decade.
Screaming for a center, screaming for more than a center, James Higgins. You know, a lot of talk over the course of the year that James Higgins was a player that could challenge for first overall. I don't think that's the case any longer, but James Higgins is really smart. He had what I would call a really good, solid first season at Boston College. When I watch him play, I see Nico Hischier. And he's good enough defensively to be put into that category of player. I don't think he's going to be a 90-point guy in the NHL, but I think he's going to contribute offense. And boy, oh boy, do the Nashville Predators need a center that can create offense for their team.
Okay, there you go. That was Craig Button, TSN in the mock draft. So as far as the college season is concerned, James Higgins was considered by a lot of people, including TSN's Bob McKenzie, as the number 1 prospect coming into the year. And now here we are talking about him being available at 5. And the reason why is because at BC this year, as a freshman, James Higgins did not light it up. So I decided to compare the freshman season for James Higgins to a bunch of high-end first-round picks to see how he compared and whether or not this should worry us or what we should expect out of, again, the real true number 1, number 2 type prospects. So for comparison, the top 1st, 2nd, 3rd overall guys, Jack Eichel at BU as a freshman, Adam Fantilli at Michigan, and Macklin Celebrini also at BU. Those guys absolutely lit it up. And those guys all went within the first 3 picks of their drafts. Eichel, Fantilli, and Celebrini were all they all roughly played about 40 games. In about 40 games, 38 games, somewhere around there, they were all 70 points, 65 points, 64 points. Higgins was more 37 points in 37 games. That's actually good. But Celebrini had 32 goals his freshman year at BU. Higgins had 11 goals last year. That's the difference. The class that Higgins is more aligned with is that of Trevor Zegras, who in 33 games at BU had 36 points. Matt Boldy, 34 games at BC, 26 points. Kent Johnson, whoever the hell that is, 26 games, 27 points. And Logan Cooley, who actually had more of a season, and a lot of people compare Logan Cooley to James Higgins, actually had more of a Celebrini, Fantilli, Eichel type year. Logan Cooley, 60 points in 39 games. What it's telling me is, hey, Higgins is a really, really good top-line center, but he's not Macklin Celebrini. He's not Jack Eichel. He's not one of those guys. So then my theory would be, okay, if he is a Matt Boldy, if he is a Logan Cooley, if he is that kind of player, Zegras, I think Zegras has an attitude problem. Or there's something not right between him and Anaheim. We'll see how he does in Philadelphia. But if that's the case, and you look at Porter Martone and you think Porter Martone is a 40-goal-a-year winger, you think he is what Mikko Rantanen has been so far in the NHL with that big body and that big frame, then I could see why you take Martone. But as far as the freshman season is concerned, it's not as if Higgins' freshman year was a disaster at BC. It just was more like Matt Boldy and Kent Johnson and Trevor Zegras than it was Adam Fantilli or Macklin Celebrini or Jack Eichel. 615-737-1025. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Noah is up next here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Noah, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
Appreciate the time. I've been hawking the draft lines, and you're pretty spot on 1, 2, 3. But number 4, the odds have dropped in the past hour. It's going to be Higgins. He's minus 310. I think number 4, it's going to be Islanders. It's going to either move up or somebody's going to have to move up to that spot. Martone's going, I think, at number 5.
What do the lines say about Martone at 5?
He's second favorite right now.
So who's the top favorite at 5?
Caleb Desnoyers.
So then why are you saying Martone over Desnoyers?
Desnoyers, just due to the fact I think it's his fit, and the line is moving towards that way as well. So it's crunching. But another name to watch is still Brady Martin. Dropped from the 10X down to 6X. Line's moving that way. So it's either Preds can even move up to number 4, or they're staying put. They go Martone, or they trade back. There's also that potential chance. So
I don't see.
personally,
James, I do not see the Predators trading back. Thank you for your call, Noah. Here's what I'll say on the betting odds. You be very careful with this because I followed the betting odds very closely prior to the 2023 NFL draft. And if you remember, all day leading up to the draft, there was all that chatter. Remember Diana Rossini in the Titans facility on ESPN? There was all that chatter that the Titans were going to make that big trade with Arizona at number 3, and they were going to draft C.J. Stroud. And remember how one person on Reddit sent the Will Levis number 1 overall just through the roof odds. Like out of nowhere, some guy on Reddit said that. The night of the 23 draft, all day, the Titans were circled as the landing spot for Stroud at 3. And then about an hour before the show, or I should say an hour before the draft. So the way that we do our draft show, obviously, is I'm on 2 to 6, and then we're together, me, Derek, Trevor, Chris, on from 6 to 7, and then the draft starts at 7 o'clock. And while we were on for that hour, all the money started coming in on Stroud at 2. And that was an hour before the draft. So I think what's happening here is the reports that we've seen, whether it be Frank Saravalli, who says that the 2 picks that Montreal gave to New York in order to get Noah Dobson is equal to the 4th or 5th pick. And we've seen the report from Cam Robinson at Elite Hockey Prospects, who says that right now the Islanders are zeroing in on number 4, and they'll do whatever it takes to get to number 4, to take James Higgins, and the owner will do whatever it takes. Maybe that's all real, and maybe that is going to happen. But also I think what's happening is the speculation is leading towards a lot of people making the bet, because I believe yesterday the betting odds, as they were concerned, had Higgins at 5. So I would caution you when it comes to the betting odds. I'd say be very careful with that. I do not see the Predators taking a trade back here. Like I could see, again, one of the centers, whether it's Desnoyers, who seems to be, this just solid player, Martin, who seems to just have this unbelievable compete level, according to Scott Wheeler at The Athletic. But these other guys, like a trade back and taking, a Victor Eklund? Can't see it. A trade back and taking Roger McQueen? Can't see it. And what would the Predators be getting in a trade back? Again, all you do is sit there for years and years and years and say, oh, God, I wish we sucked more and didn't lose in the first round in a series that we were never going to win. Oh, I wish we sucked more so we could get a good pick. And then finally, because you lived through this disastrous season, you finally get a good pick. And then you want to trade it? Would trade out of that pick? No. Stick and pick. Who's at the top of the board? Take them. I am a little surprised, though, to see Desnoyers up there at number 5. I am a little surprised. And it does feel, if the odds are shifting in Hagen's favor, again, I don't know if that's report-driven or if that's those guys always know driven, but it could be one or the other. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. We also have some new names that we may have to keep an eye on. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game. So when it comes to deciding between what you really value the most, is it the high-end skill, even if it's in a smaller package? Is it the compete level of a Caleb Denoyer or a Brady Martin, which is a lot like Sam Bennett? You know, people are comparing him to Sam Bennett. Is it the just raw size and talent, albeit with the medical question marks? Which of those matters the most to you?
Oh, wow. They all bring different packages. What matters most to me? I think the safest thing is always the drive. That's a really something that I don't think you find a National Hockey League player, unless they're ultra skilled, are going to make it in the National Hockey League for any length of time. So you're looking for a combination. They all have skill.
Okay, there you go. That was Barry Trotz saying, you know, it's that ultimate drive. It's that compete. It's that. And there's one thing about that I keep coming back to. So Corey Pronman, who is the other draft analyst, we referenced Scott Wheeler a lot at The Athletic. The other draft analyst they have is Corey Pronman. And by the way, Joe Rexroad, if you could please send this to your superiors at The Athletic. If it was not, now that they don't cover the Predators and they don't cover the Titans and they don't cover really anything anymore that I care about, the only reason that is worth having a subscription to The Athletic is because they do a great job as far as the NHL is concerned, and I do like Mike Sando's stuff when it comes to talking to executives in the NFL. So if you get rid of Mike Sando and you get rid of this stuff with the NHL, I'm out. So just keep that in mind. But Corey Pronman has his latest mock draft out today, and I was a little surprised. He had Brady Martin going to the Predators with the 5th overall pick, which is kind of a surprise given the fact that all of the chatter has been about Martone and Higgins. But I keep coming back to the fact that it sounds like Brady Martin is a Trotz kind of guy. What did Trotz say in that cut right there that really matters to him? It's the compete level. When they did their superlatives at The Athletic, as far as the NHL draft was concerned, about who's the most talented, who's the fastest skater, who's got the best shot, who's got the highest compete, it was Brady Martin. And they wrote at the same time that there was nobody else who was in Brady Martin's class in terms of a competitor. Again, Barry Trotz is a coach. Now, it's kind of funny because when I used to work with Floyd used to always tell me how the general manager's job, the difference between being GM and being coach, is that the general manager has to protect the future of the organization from the coach. And the coach is the one who wants to win right now, wants everything right now, and they would trade every first-round pick for a player if they could. And sometimes Barry Trotz runs the Predators like a coach. Not all the time. You know, Andrew Burnett for the last 2 years has wanted Tanner Mullendijk on the NHL roster, and Barry Trotz has said no. But the reason I say this is because every now and then that inner coach in Barry Trotz comes out. And when it comes to the compete level, as far as Brady Martin is concerned, I could see it. Again, he's a 6-foot center, and he's got a high compete level. And the way I see these guys doing this is, and I'm talking about the Barry Trotz type guys, is they'll look at it and say, with that effort and with that talent, we can coach him to be better than his talent says he is with that level of compete that he's got. And when I read up on Brady Martin, the one guy I kind of keep circling back to is Mike Fisher. Brady Martin is 6 foot and 180 pounds. Now, I don't know exactly how much Mike Fisher weighed, but I'm going to guess that's probably how big Mike Fisher was. I mean, in real life, I think Mike Fisher might be like 5'10", 5'11", but you know how they always do this. Oh, yeah, 6'1". But I think 6 feet, 180, I think that's probably what Mike Fisher was. And we know Barry Trotz loved Mike Fisher. And this organization loves that Mike Fisher type player. Forget about the fact that Mike Fisher's married to Carrie Underwood. That was a big story for everybody who didn't give a rat's ass about hockey. But as far as the actual hockey part of it is concerned, and what Mike Fisher represented, whether it's David Poyle, Barry Trotz, Peter Laviolette, whomever, those guys would have taken a bullet for Mike Fisher because they know Mike Fisher would have taken a bullet for the Predators. And so if Brady Martin, I can see Trotz, the coach, sitting there looking at this Brady Martin and saying, look, I know that Hagens is a little bit more talented, but Brady Martin is a much tougher competitor. And when it comes to grinding and getting through those games, the key is the competition. I could see it. I see it happening. Robin says Fisher was 215. Was Fisher 215 when he was drafted, though? What was he when he was drafted? 215. I don't think Mike Fisher was 215, Robbie. Come on now. But then there's a part in the Corey Pronman mock draft that I do not like. Pronman writes, I think they likely go to Noyer if he's available at 5. Otherwise, my bet is between Martin and Roger McQueen for them. And it should be noted, by the way, that Caleb Denoyer goes in this mock draft with the 4th overall pick to Utah. He says, otherwise, my bet is between Brady Martin and Roger McQueen. McQueen bears some risk at 5, but Nashville did a lot of background work on him, and GM Barry Trotz was quoted this week saying he thinks McQueen could be a number 1 center. Let me just say right now, no on Roger McQueen. Jake, if you could, Barry Trotz was on our program earlier this week, and he's the one who brought up Roger McQueen, which is what I guess Corey Pronman is referencing, because I don't think he talked about McQueen in his press conference, but I'm guessing it was this on the show that they said, well, maybe they could take McQueen. And I'm just going to tell you, listen to the conversation when he and I get into it about the back injury. I'll tell you right now, no on Roger McQueen. Here was Barry earlier this week.
To me, the wild card in this whole 2 wild cards that you just mentioned is Roger McQueen. I mean, if you really look at him, he's 6'5.5". Teams are projecting him to could be a number 1 center. There is some question on his back, but I think hopefully that's all been taken care of in terms of all the medical and all that.
Hopefully, shouldn't you have the answer to that right now?
I do have the answer to that. I know a lot of good things. I mean, in track, he's a sprinter. So he's got good genetic genes. If you're that big and you're running sprints, that you're a good athlete.
Have you ever met somebody that had a bad back before?
Yes.
I've never met somebody that's had a bad back. I only know people that have bad backs. I worry about backs.
I do too. And where there's studies on body type, different people have more constant back pain with certain body types. All that. So we're looking at all that. But to me, when you throw out all those names, one of them will probably be a Predator next year. And the 2 wild cards that to me is trying to get a gauge where they're going to go is a guy like Martone and McQueen.
Okay, so that's what Barry said. And the one part that stood out to me was when I said to Barry Trotz, I don't like back injuries. And I said, I worry about back injuries. And he said, I do too. You cannot, with this 5th pick, take Roger McQueen. And Roger McQueen is 6'5". I mean, if Roger McQueen didn't get hurt, then he probably is the number 1 or number 2 pick in this draft. But the key word in all of that is if, and he did get hurt. And I can't overlook that. If Roger McQueen goes on to be a star, a lot of people said to me when I said, hey, I'd make the trade with the Giants and I'd trade Cam Ward and I wouldn't take him and whatever. And people said, but if Cam Ward becomes the next Mahomes, Jared, then you're going to feel really stupid. Sure. I mean, I guess Buffalo traded the pick for Mahomes and I think they're doing okay. That said, though, if Roger McQueen goes on to be an absolute superstar, and the Predators didn't take him, I'll accept it. I can live with it. What I can't live with is the Predators taking him at number 5, and then the Predators saying, well, our doctors seem to like the back injury, and when it comes to the doctors and the back injury, oh, we think it'll be okay, and then it being Caleb Farley 2.0. That I will not accept. If that happens and they take Roger McQueen, now Roger McQueen just isn't a very good player, that's one thing. But if they take Roger McQueen and Roger McQueen becomes Caleb Farley 2.0, I will think that everybody should be fired. Because you've got the warning. You don't expect to pick this high again. So on Brady Martin, you can talk me into that. Roger McQueen with the back injury, you cannot talk me into. You cannot talk me into that with the 5th overall pick. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to get in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. It's Stillman & Company. And I guess we're, I'm still waiting for some of the rumors to come up. There is one player we really haven't spent a lot of time talking about that maybe we need to start talking about. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
Then there was another name that'll add to the list that I heard after my mock draft dropped yesterday, and that's Brady Martin's name. And Brady is really in that mix from 4 to 7, an ultra competitor who would fit with Zachary LaRue and some of the other players that the Predators have drafted and brought into the organization in recent years. But Martin maybe doesn't have the high-end skill or the high-end point production projectability that a player like Porter Martone or James Hagens has. But what Brady Martin does have is sort of the motor that never stops, the most physical player in the draft, the most competitive player in the draft, the fiercest competitor in the draft. Use whatever cliche you want. That's sort of Brady Martin's identity.
Okay, if you don't think that wets Barry Trotz's panties, then I don't think you know Barry Trotz. When it's like that compete level of player in Brady Martin, he would be, I think that's exactly what Barry Trotz loves. The guy who, hey, he's not the most talented, but he works his ass off and he'll fight for every puck and he'll get to every spot on the ice and he'll get in front of the net and he'll get dirty and block a shot on the penalty kill. And that right there, I'm telling you, that to me, that is Barry Trotz to a T. One thing that we don't talk a lot about, or one name that we haven't talked a lot about, maybe we should, is Caleb Denoyer. So as of right now, in fact, let me refresh it because the odds are shifting to the point the caller made earlier this hour. When it comes to the draft odds, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, as of right now, Caleb Denoyer is the leading favorite, the odds-on favorite to go number 5 overall to the Predators at plus 125. James Hagens continues to jump with the odds at number 4 at minus 340. It's pretty crazy. What they're saying is that Anton Frondel, which I think you can pin in, Frondel at number 3, Frondel is minus 370 to 3, and Hagens is minus 340 at 4. So the odds are saying that Hagens is as likely to 4, which we believe would be to the Islanders with a trade up ahead of the Predators. And then Denoyer would be the favorite to go technically, although he's not a betting favorite, he is the odds-on favorite at plus 125, Martone plus 200. It's right there between Denoyer and Martone. So here's what they say about Caleb Denoyer, who in the latest Corey Pronman mock draft is going at number 4 overall. According to the different troughs, they have Denoyer rated as the 4th best player at 6'1.5" and 175. Caleb Denoyer's skating is average, puck skills above average, hockey sense above average, and compete above average, with his player comp being Nico Hischier. And Nico Hischier was the former number 1 overall pick in the draft. Nico Hischier is a good player. He's not a great player, which, again, when you're picking 5, you're probably going to get a good player. You're probably not going to get a great player. Here's what they write at The Athletic. Quote, Denoyer was one of the best players in the QMJHL this season as a leader on the top team in the league. He was also the MVP of the QMJHL playoffs and the number 1 pick in the QMJHL draft. I'm guessing that is the Quebec Junior League, the Quebec Montreal Junior Hockey League, whatever. He checks every box for what you want in an NHL center. He's tall and fast and makes a lot happen with and without the puck. Denoyer displays excellent skill and playmaking ability. He creates offense on the move, off the perimeter, and at the net. He has great creativity as a playmaker while also being a detailed two-way player. Denoyer can be trusted to check top players as he has the physical edge in his game and gives a high effort every game. He has the potential to be a number 1 center who can play in any situation. Sounds good to me. Again, a legitimate number 1 center as far as that is concerned. So, the one thing I do want to say when it comes to all this, well, you know what? I'm going to hold this in the back. But if they end up with Denoyer, not the end of the world. Again, the comp is Nico Hischier. The comp for James Hagens is William Nylander. I think I'd rather have Nylander than Hischier. And then let's see what the Porter Martone. Porter Martone is actually ranked 3rd on the big board, and his comp is Philip Forsberg. Not that I don't like Forsberg, but, I want to do better than Forsberg here. Let's go to your phones. Keegan is up next here on our program. Keegan, thank you for waiting and calling. You go ahead.
Hey, Jared. Long time listener, first time caller. I want to piggyback off of what you said between Higgins and Martone. So Higgins is a center that we need desperately, but Martone, number one, has the size. Number two is more NHL ready currently. And number three, puts the puck in the net, which I didn't watch a lot of games last year because I have YouTube TV and can't watch them. But it seems to me like we need to put the puck in the net.
What?
So
Okay.
If he's there, why? So if he's there, why not take him?
Okay. Thank you for your call. Did I say something? Because the text line is like, oh, that's going to be my favorite sound clip for the station. And somebody else said, oof, Jared. And then somebody else on the YouTube chat said, what in the world? Ha, ha, ha. What did I say? Jake, did I say something?
Maybe it was the Barry Trotz panties comment coming out of the break.
Oh.
That's the only thing I can think of, though.
Are you people really not, like, desensitized on this program to that point?
I was going to say, that's not, like, that out of the ordinary.
I mean, like, look, if Willie Donick said it, yeah, that would be a shocker. But for me to say, I say stuff like that all the time. Get over it. I'm sitting here thinking, like, what's going on here? I'm sorry to the caller. His point was that Martone is more ready and puts the puck in the net. One of those two things I care about. Putting the little black puck into the little white net. The who's more NHL ready, I could not give a rat's ass about. I'm not on the hot seat as a Nashville Predator fan. I am a Nashville Predator fan today. I will be a Nashville Predator fan next year. I will be a Nashville Predator fan 8 years from now. It will not matter. I will root for the Predators. So I just want the guy who's going to be the best player. This idea of you go get the best player right now. Who cares? Who cares who the best player is right now? I care about who the best player is going to be. So that I don't care about. Now, the point about Martone, the fact that he puts the puck in the net, that matters. Because again, and I know that Nashville is not Toronto in terms of the way we talk hockey, though I think Nashville gets a bad reputation around the entire NHL because I do think the fans here know the sport. Most of us know the way you win is by putting that little black puck in that little white net. That's how you win. And when you've got a goalie who everybody in that organization thinks can keep that little black puck out of that little white net, even though when games really matter, he never does, you're going to need guys to put the little black puck in the little white net. That's what it's going to take. One texter in the text line says, if they drafted Noyer and I have to listen to the Nashville media butcher his name, I'll jab ice picks in my ears. How hard is it to... Have you never met anybody French? Like, have you never met... Again, I did not know. I was actually in Costa Rica. I'm guessing that the week of the draft lottery is when I went to Costa Rica. I don't know. But I woke up one night at like 2 a.m. in Costa Rica. And I kid you not, at 2 a.m. in Costa Rica, I am reading just on my phone about the hockey draft. I'm a nerd, I know. And I'm reading in the Athletic about these different guys, and I'm reading about Denoyer, and I'm like, I think his name is pronounced Denoyer, even though it's spelled Denoyers. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Denoyer. Well, then I looked it up. His brother plays in the league, and there's a pronunciation guide for every player in the league. Like they spell out Mike Fisher's name, like M-I-G-H, whatever, Mike. It's Denoyer, I do believe. One texter says, heaven forbid the Predators get 2 guys that can score 48 goals. Forsberg scored 48 goals once. I mean, Matt Duchene scored 40 goals that year too, and they cut him a year later. So, whatever. One texter says, you should care who's more ready because Trotz and the staff ruined prospects with overcooking. Who have they ruined? Who have they ruined by overcooking? Have they ruined Mullendijk? Have they ruined Matthew Wood? I mean, Matthew Wood's already played in the NHL. So who have they ruined by overcooking? That I don't get. Apparently, DraftKings now has the daylight between Denoyer and Martone. They have it Denoyer plus 180, Martone plus 190. So, look, I don't care if they take Martone. Again, a guy puts a little black puck in the little white net. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. 615-737-1025 here on our program. Coming up next, my prediction for what's going to happen tonight. But it has changed today. We will get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are today on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, and we are less than an hour away. Max and Robbie will have the draft show, Draft Night in Smashville, live from Bridgestone Arena coming up at 6 o'clock. That is when round one begins. And as we all know, Matthew Schaefer will go number one to the Islanders. Do we know, Jake, who is leading that program? Is Robbie Mike 1 or is Max Mike 1 tonight on the draft show?
I am not 100% sure. I think it's Max. He's listed first in the liners, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, so Max and Robbie tonight for the for the draft night in Smashville, and they got the big party going down at Bridgestone Arena. So if you're going to want to watch the draft tonight, you're going to want to go to the party they've got at Bridgestone Arena. So much so that not only are we pumping it on our station, but they were pumping it during the Braves and Mets series about, hey, be sure to head to Bridgestone Arena for draft night in Smashville on Friday night. So enjoy all of that. So at the end of the midday show today, Adam Vingan wanted everybody to make a prediction as to who the Predators were going to take. And I said, hey, I got to wait. I can't on the midday show let the cat out of the bag. I got to save mine, but you guys go ahead. And I believe, I don't know if you have it in front of you, Jake, but I believe most of the midday show picked Hagens, right?
I think so. I think it was at least 2 on Hagens, maybe a split 2 on Hagens, 2 on Martone.
Okay. So with that being said, I believe the Predators want to draft James Hagens. Where they sit right now, I believe that if the board comes to them and it is what is expected to be chalk, again, Schaefer at 1, Misa at 2 to San Jose, Frondell at 3 to the Blackhawks, and the betting odds are skyrocketing for Frondell at 3, and Denoyer at 4 to Utah. Or Brady Martin at 4 to Utah. Anybody but Hagens at 4 to Utah. I believe the Nashville Predators are going to want to select James Hagens out of Boston College. Now, they may not have the opportunity because as of right now, the betting favorite is James Hagens to go number 4, and that would not to be Utah where they already have Logan Cooley, but we assume that would be a trade with the Islanders. As of right now, and the Hagens odds are slipping. Because in the last segment, Frondell, I think, was like 370 to go number 3. And then now Frondell is minus 550 to go number 3. And number 4, Hagens is now down to 280 when he was 340. Minus 280. He was originally minus 340 about 15 minutes ago. So his odds are slipping. If the Predators are on the clock at number 5 overall, and they really have their choice outside of Misa, I think it's going to be Hagens. And I'm going to tell you why. This is not so much a Barry Trotz thing as much as it is a Nashville Predators as a whole kind of thing. When you're picking 5th overall, it's not just the general manager's call. It's also the owner's call. It's also the president's call. And while Trotz is leading the discussion, it's a group selection. And everybody is in the group talks. Imagine if we owned the team and we had the opportunity to sit in on the draft meetings. We had the opportunity to sit there as the Predators were holding their draft meetings and we were listening and would we really care what they have to say about 23 and 26? We haven't even talked today about 23 and 26, except for, hey, Jared, do you think they could trade this? But we'd sit in there with number 5. So everybody's involved. The first reason why I think they want to take James Hagens, number 1, James Hagens plays center. And while Bill Haslam may be new to the Predators and hasn't lived through what we've had to live through, Sean Henry is not. The Predators traded away Seth Jones, the highest draft pick they've had other than David Legwan, so they could get Ryan Johansson. And they paid Ryan Johansson a ridiculous amount of money because they were desperate for a number 1 center. And Johansson never really had the heart to be a number 1 center in the NHL. Hagens has heart. And I can see both Barry Trotz and Sean Henry looking at this as this is the end to our search for a number one center. Even though he's not Sidney Crosby, even though he's not Connor McDavid, even though he's not, this is the end of the search for the number one center. We finally have a guy. That's the first reason. The second reason is James Higgins is American, and the Predators are owned by the former Republican governor of Tennessee. Not to say it's the end-all, be-all, but can't you just see the Predators as an organization getting their weenies all excited about their star being on the U.S. Olympic team or their star representing the U.S. in the Four Nations face-off? Can't you just see, again, when the owner's involved in the pick, USA, USA, USA. And I think that does play a role into it. And where did James Higgins play really, really well? USA, USA, USA in the World Championships. 3, Higgins' college season, which dropped his draft stock a little bit, wasn't really that bad. He was a point-per-game player as a freshman at Boston College. It was solid. Wasn't great. Wasn't Macklin Celebrini. Wasn't Adam Fantilli. Wasn't Jack Eichel. But it was good. And Hagen's college season is very similar to that of a Trevor Zegras or a Matt Boldy or that kind of player, which would be justified in using the 5th overall pick. And then finally, the Predators absolutely love. They are absolutely obsessed with the U.S. national team pipeline. And yes, a lot of that was a David Poile thing, who was the general manager of the U.S. national team. And yes, he was the one who hired Peter Laviolette, whom he coached with at Team USA. John Hines, who was the head coach of the Team USA developmental team. But let's not forget last year, the Predators drafted Teddy Stiga in the 2nd round, who plays with Higgins at BC, but they drafted him from the U.S. national development team. The Predators love, as an organization, the U.S. national team. And James Higgins is a U.S. national team guy. So I know all the smoke is surrounding Porter Martone. But I think when it comes to making the pick, I am not predicting that the Predators will pick James Higgins. But I am telling you, I think that's who they want to take tonight. I think they look at this and they say he's the 3rd best prospect in this draft, which is what a lot of people have believed the entire year. Only lately he started to slip behind Frondell. And the reason why he's fallen behind Frondell is because the Blackhawks apparently already have enough 5'11 centers. He's fallen behind Denoyer. Some people he's fallen behind Brady Martin or Porter Martone, all guys who are over 6 feet tall. And look, that's not nothing. That is something. But I'm just telling you, where I sit, I think this is who they want to take. And the second part of this, and I don't know what New York is ultimately going to offer Utah in order to try to get to number 4. And Utah has said for weeks that number 4 is in play, which top 10 picks aren't very often in play as far as the draft is concerned. But my guess is the reason why the Islanders are looking all in to go get to number 4 is because they know if we don't get to number 5, Nashville's taking him. So if we don't move up to number 5 in this draft, if we don't get to 4, Nashville's taking him at 5. And who used to coach the Islanders? Barry Trotz did. So I'd like to think that they probably have a pretty good handle on what Barry Trotz is or is not going to do. Again, we ran the cuts of Barry Trotz in his press conference and Barry Trotz on our program. We ran it through AI, and AI said he didn't have the personal conviction when it came to Porter Martone that he had with James Higgins. Again, my prediction was going to be that this was going to go chalk, and the Predators, who most people think are going to take Martone at 5, were going to take Higgins. But now I think cat's out of the bag. I think the reason why the Islanders are so desperate to get to number 4 is because they know the Predators want Higgins. And this is not me saying that Hagens should be the pick, although if I got to pick, I guess I'd want him to pick Hagens off the limited knowledge I have of these players. But that's just the vibe. This organization, they just lust for everything James Hagens represents. The high-end skill at the number one center position. I know he's in a little bit smaller package, but you're picking fifth. You're not picking first. The Team USA connection. The fact that they can market him, especially if he were to make it to the U.S. national team for the Olympics, not this upcoming year because he's not going to be old enough for that, but for the Olympics down the road or the Four Nations face-off, how much they would freaking love it. And most importantly, that Team USA national team connection, which means so much to David Poyle and to David Kelty, and that's what landed you Peter Laviolette and John Hines and Teddy Stiga, and that is something. So I believe that's what the Predators want to do. They want to draft James Hagens with the 5th overall pick. Will they be able to? That remains to be seen. But I feel pretty strongly that they want to take Hagens. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. And coming up next, Elliot apparently has a report about James Hagens and the Predators. I have not heard it. Jake, you've got it, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Jake's got it. I have not heard this. So this comes from Elliot Friedman. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 1025, 106 for the game. Fireball Hot Take Friday means Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Nothing goes down so smooth and tastes as great as ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's right. I absolutely love Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. And at 5 tonight, I hope to toast back a nice ice cold Fireball shot to celebrate what the good guys are going to do. So we shall see. That's Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do it responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. I saw a report from Greg Wyshynski about your former club, the Islanders, wanting to try to find a way to trade back to take James Hagen so that they can have their cake and eat it too. And I think I saw the report said something like, well, they also have an extra first round pick at like 24th overall. And I'm like, don't think that's going to get you up to number 5.
Yeah, no, it won't.
But if they called and they said, hey, we'll give you Matthew Barzal, we're tearing it down, we're going to put Barzal and Noah Dobson out there, then would you be amenable to trading the 5th pick for a Matthew Barzal, who in 2028, 2029 will be north of 30? But right now, is if you were looking to contend right now, would be exactly, I think, the kind of player you'd want to add.
Yeah, I think I had Matthew, but I think it's a little bit hypothetical, and I don't like to talk about other teams. But you get a top player at that 5th position, you can turn that player. He can take care of business now, and the fact that you could probably move him to get back in that position would be something like that. But I don't want to talk about any other players. It's a little hypothetical. Plus, it'll get me in a lot of trouble in the league. So, but no, if you get a top player for a top player, then you have to at least think about it.
Okay, that was Barry Trotz earlier in the week as the Islanders were concerned. Now, as of right now, the report from Cam Robinson came out. He's, I guess, hockey elite prospect. I don't know who the hell that is, but that is a real site. And he says that the Islanders, after the Noah Dobson trade, they're willing to do whatever it takes to get to number 4 so that they can try to take James Hagens. The owner may not say no to anything when you go to him and talk about James Hagens. That's the report. Now, Elliot Friedman, I have not heard this. Junior Stillman and Company producer Adam Vingan is the one who found this cut and sent it to Jake Lyman. So I have not heard this. This is the latest from Elliot Friedman Sportsnet as far as Hagens and the Predators are concerned. Jake, play the cut.
So there's I tell you, there's so much flying around today. It's hard to separate truth from fiction. I'll say this: Nashville's got the number 5 pick. One of their big draft guys is Jeff Kelty, who's a Boston guy. Okay. So there are, even though that the rumor is that Hagens is dropping just because of preference, I will say this: there are some teams out there who think if you're gonna get Hagens, that's the first spot you're worrying about.
Okay, so Elliot says that if you're gonna get Hagens, teams think you better get to 5. Because Nashville, that's the circle. In fact, The Athletic has a kind of a live blog or whatever. And Kevin Kurz, who I'm guessing Kevin Kurz covers the Philadelphia Flyers, I believe. Kevin Kurz an hour ago said, quote, even if James Hagens is available at number 6, I'd be somewhat surprised. Oh, hold on. Now it just refreshed on me. Even if he's available at number 6, I'd be somewhat surprised if the Flyers took James Hagens based on what they need and how I believe this front office operates. Again, I know how the Predators operate, and I think James Hagens is their guy. Again, USA, 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 and Team USA and all of that. I think that's very, very important as far as they're concerned. So Elliot says you got to get to 5. Most people think if you want Hagens, you got to get in front of 5 to the Predators. As of right now, the betting odds, and we've been keeping an eye on this since the caller said that it looked like it was going to be Hagens. It was about 340 for Hagens to go number 4 overall about 30 minutes ago. And where we sit right now, according to the FanDuel Sports book, it seems that Anton Frondel is a lock at minus 550. To go number 3, that's not a surprise. Hagens is still the favorite at minus 280, but Caleb Denoyer at plus 210, starting to creep up there a little bit. And as far as number 5 is concerned, we now have Denoyer at plus 125, Martone at plus 200, and both Brady Martin and Hagens are plus 500. I would say this, not to tell you what to bet, and I'm not betting it, but I would just tell you, if I was going to make a bet, it would be Hagens at 5. Because Arizona and the Islanders, maybe they're working through a trade, but if I'm Arizona, if I'm Utah, I'm trying to get everything I can get out of the Islanders if the smoke is as solid that the Predators want Hagens at 5. 615-737-1037. 1025 here on the program. One texter says, if they draft Brady Martin over James Higgins, I am out as a Predators fan. Brady Martin is Austin Watson or Colton Sissons. I will absolutely lose my mind. Well, if you're going to lose your mind, then you're not out as far as being a fan is concerned, but I would understand it. I guess I just don't know enough about these guys to have that kind of opinion to where I could sit there and say, yes or no, the way I did with Peter Skoronsky when they took a freaking guard with the 11th pick. Now, if they take a goalie with the 7th pick or with the 5th pick, I am going to lose my mind. The two things, and I know I'm not on live, and there's kind of a reason for that, I think, being the flagship partner. Between that, and I don't really know these guys like I do football, but when it comes to the like me losing my crap over what happens tonight, there's two things that would do it. A goalie at 5. If you take a goalie at 23 or 26, again, I don't think goalies matter that much, but that's your business. A goalie at 5 and Roger McQueen. Roger McQueen would set me off. Absolutely set me off with that back injury if they took him at number 5. And it's like somebody texted me and said, I think I would take McQueen because how many 6'4" centers are out there that can skate like he can? And yeah, it's a risk, but you got to take a swing. I'm going to say this. If they draft McQueen at number 5 and Barry comes on the show after the draft, which I assume that he will, I will tell Barry, if that back acts up, you should be fired. We lived through it with Caleb Farley. Everybody told us, oh, no, it'll be okay, Jared. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Again, I've never met somebody who had a bad back. I only know people who have bad backs. I would love to talk to an actual chiropractor, and I would love to say, how much of your business is repeat customers? Because they just keep coming back with that bad back. I've never met somebody who had a bad back. If they take him, I'll lose my mind. Austin says, whether the Predators take Higgins or not, Barry Trotz has put the organization in a fantastic position by saying he, quote unquote, wants Higgins. Maybe the Islanders will sell the farm in order to get him. Didn't it kind of feel like from that cut we ran where I asked him about Barzal, and he was like, well, I don't want to talk about other players, but, if you get a guy for a guy, you get a... Doesn't it kind of sound like Trotz would do that? If the Islanders call and they were to say, what will it take to get to 5? I would say it will take Barzal and it will take your unprotected first next year and then another asset. So Callum Ritchie, who is one of their top prospects, who's a center, he could be there. 17 in the draft could be there. It'll be another good asset to go with Barzal, who has a 22-team no-trade list, and I have no idea if the Predators are on that list or not. And they're unprotected first next year, because if you're trading away Matthew Barzal and you're going to put a rookie Matthew Schaefer out there and you've already gotten rid of Noah Dobson and you are probably not going to have James Higgins on the team next year because he's probably going back to BC, or at least he probably should go back to BC. He at least should be in the minors. If that's the case, then I would say they're probably going to be pretty bad. And I know the lottery sucks, but if I have your unprotected first next year and you're the 5th worst team in the sport, I may be picking number 2 next year. So I think that's something that I would do if I were the Predators and they called. Because for me, if not, I'm just taking Higgins. I have the ultimate leverage. I have the guy you want. So either do that or make a better deal with Arizona, and then I'll get Denoyer or whomever. I'm trying all these hockey insiders, and I get it. I understand it's their jobs, but I'm trying to get draft nuggets out of these guys, and it's all stuff about the CBA. Per sources, they're going to make them wear throat guards in junior hockey. I don't care. What's going on between the Islanders and Utah? You tell me. 615-737-1025. I got to say something about the Predators. that I'm not used to saying. That regardless of what happens tonight, I am about to give them credit for something. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Did James Hagan's college season turn you off? Apparently, the reason he's been falling, Bob McKenzie ranked him before the year as the #1 prospect. Now we're seeing some mock drafts. He's at 8, he's at 9. And there's a thought that, and I heard what you said when asked about his size, saying like, hey, there's some really good small players in the NHL. But did his college season turn you off? Because apparently that's what has rubbed some teams the wrong way.
Well, I didn't see him. I saw him twice, maybe in college this year, maybe once. But I saw him at the World Championships, and he was good. He was really good. He had, I think, one game that I could say that was pretty average for him. But a lot of people will say, he was playing with two pretty good players. Well, if you're at his age and you're playing with two players like Leonard and Perreault, I mean, they're good players to make you look good, as a lot of people say, but you got to be a good player to play with them. So I'm on the other way with him. So, every year there's a guy that falls. I think last year it was Cole Eiserman, I think. He was a guy that was ranked number one. I think it's a little bit of a curse being ranked number one if maybe you're not a generational talent. And those guys get picked to death. I mean, James Higgins is going to be a good player in this league. He is. And I think those players get the curse of when you're not necessarily a generational player, the scouts pick you apart to the point where you just start to fall a little bit. And I know he's a good player.
There you go. That was Barry Trotz on the program talking about James Higgins' college season. Will the Predators have a chance of taking James Higgins? We'll know in about an hour? Again, it says at the bottom that the draft starts at 6 o'clock. Jake, do we know, are they picking at 6 o'clock, or is 6 o'clock where, okay, now here's everybody around the desk. Let's preview the draft?
I would guess it's probably not as long as like the NFL takes to put a team on the clock, but I'd guess Islanders go on the clock by 6:10.
You don't think somebody on the NHL draft in Los Angeles is going to do what Clay Matthews did at the start of the draft when he got up there and said, I just talked to Donald Trump who said go football or whatever. I don't even remember what it said, but I'm guessing that we won't have the first picks until at least 6:30 because SportsCenter is on as of right now.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if you watched any of last night's NBA draft round 2. It took them 15 minutes to start the second round of the NBA draft. So who knows? They like to drag these things out.
Was Stephen A. Smith on the coverage?
He was not on the coverage last night.
I'm a little surprised by that. Okay, I do want to give the Predators credit for something because I don't often give the Predators credit as an organization unless they do something that I'm actually believing is worth praising. And no matter what happens tonight, again, as of right now, we know that Schaefer's going to go, Misa's going to go, and Frondel's going to go with the first 3 picks. It looks like, according to the betting odds, that James Higgins is going to go at number 4. I believe if the Predators have their call at number 5, it will be Higgins, but it may not. He may go at 4. I think the FanDuel odds now have Higgins. They were dropping to about 240. Now they're back up for number 4 on Higgins to 280. Minus 280 to be the 4th pick in the draft. Again, is that just speculation? Who knows? But I have to give them credit that they really haven't pushed one way or another. And normally when it comes to the Predators, in my experience in the past, when there's something that they want you to know, they let you know it. Whether it's me, whether it is Pierre LeBron, whether it's whomever, Elliot, when the Predators want you to know something, very rarely am I surprised by something the Predators have done since, I don't know, I'm going to say since 2021. And I don't know what happened over there in 2021, but apparently in 2021, it felt like the Predators were more kind of, hey, it's probably going to be more this than that. Whether you agreed with them or disagreed with them, they try to tell you, hey, that guy, he looks pretty good. And you'd get that sense. When it comes to this pick, there hasn't been any. And I'm not just talking about on the record, but I'm talking about behind the scenes and off the record. There hasn't been any, well, hold on now, Jared. Roger McQueen, his back is actually in good shape, and then none of it. And maybe it's because they want to keep all their options open, or maybe it's that they don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks about who they pick. Again, I can't see myself being upset if the pick is Denoyer or Brady Martin or Martone or any of those guys, or maybe Barry and Bill Haslam and Sean Henry are just keeping it right to the vest. And maybe they're the only 3 guys out there that know. I would love to know. Again, they have about 80 owners. And I would love to know what level of owner you have to be for them to show you the draft board. Like, is Bill Haslam the only owner that has the authority to see the draft board? Surely Herb Fritch, if he wanted to see the draft board, could see the draft board. Surely Tom Sigerin, if he picked up the phone and he called Sean Henry and he said, hey, who are we drafting tonight? Surely Sean Henry would tell Tom Sigerin. I say that, though, there has not been any persuading one way or another, at least as far as I'm concerned. I don't know about everybody else. I feel like I probably am the one that does a lot of talking behind the scenes just because I want to know, hey, what are we thinking here? What are we thinking there? And so that way, when I tell you something, it's, hey, I'm telling you, not I'm telling you. But there has been nothing when it comes to the Predators behind the scenes that has tipped this pick one way or another. Again, all the gurus are saying, well, we hear Martone, Martone, Martone. ESPN has said they hear Martone. Scott Wheeler at The Athletic, he says he's heard nothing but Martone. But I haven't heard anything about Martone. We had Barry on the program. I didn't walk away thinking Barry wants to take this guy after we had Barry on the program. When he brought up the compete thing, I said, okay, well, that sounds like Brady Martin. But when I asked him about Higgins, he was very defensive about the perception that Higgins didn't have a good season last year. But there wasn't kind of anything one way or another that made me think that Trotz was going in this direction or that direction. The one thing that I do kind of feel, and I saw in The Athletic where they talked about, there are some rumors out there that Roger McQueen could be somebody that they might have some interest. I cannot see Trotz doing that. And when Trotz said on the program on Tuesday that he is, when I said I worry about bad backs, and he said I do too, that tells me I feel like all I need to know. But I want to give them credit as an organization. Again, the Predators, and I mean this, and I'm not just saying this because we're partners with them. I don't have to kiss their ass. And I've gone to war with them enough. The Predators are a pleasure to work with. Like, I have worked with organizations that are just freaking tire fires. The Predators are not that. They really are. They are, again, they don't agree with everything I say. I don't agree with everything they do. But they are a joy to work with, at least from where I sit. But they have not tried to sway me one way or another on any of these players when every single person over there who is paid to know everything about those players knows a lot more about it than I do. So I want to give them credit because that's what a good organization does. A good organization zips the lips. They button it up. And while Barry does talk a lot, there wasn't really anything that was, oh, they really like this guy, or oh, they don't really like that guy. 615-737-1025. Merle in Mount Juliet says, I've had a bad back since I was 24. I am 45 now, and twisting and quick movements and bending forward is the worst thing you can do with any disc problems. Skating is probably the worst thing you could possibly do with any back problems. Lower back pain even affects just normal walking. Do not draft Roger McQueen, says Merle in Mount Juliet. So a couple people have asked, what if Trotz packages the two picks, 23 and 26, to move up after they use number 5 to move up and to take Roger McQueen? If they were to do that, I'm cool with it. Because that would tell me that, hey, this is a guy we really like. We want to take a risk. Let us take a risk, Jared. And if you want to take a risk and you take a risk, cool. That's why I remember when the Titans took Malik Willis. And I kept telling everybody, it's a third-round pick with first-round hype. If you bust on the 86th pick in the draft at quarterback, who cares? And John Robinson even said it. He was like, hey, I'm taking a shot here. Let's see. So I'm fine with taking a shot if it's 23 and 26. What I'm not fine with taking a shot, or as Barry would call it, a big swing. What I'm not cool with is taking a massive risk at number 5. That you got to get a guy who he doesn't have to be up here right away. He doesn't. I know Predator fans, want, Porter Martone, he's the most NHL. I don't care about that. I want the guy who 5 or 6 years from now is the best player that you can draft with the 5th pick. But you cannot take a massive risk. And that's what that would be. A massive risk in Roger McQueen when the guy's had a bad back for 2 years. I mean, the way I was listening to, what's his name? Scott Wheeler talk about it when he was on the midday show, I was like, oof, God, that's not good. 615-737-1025. There is some trending bad news that I do want to hit on. And a little surprise, I think, when it comes to the 5th pick. Plus, one thing everybody needs to be aware of when it comes to whomever the Predators may take, we'll hit that next, and I will predict the 5 picks, and then we will turn it over to Max and Robbie, who are live at Bridgestone Arena tonight for draft night in Smashville. Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Round out the top 5 for us here. You got the Nashville Predators, Craig, who have not picked in the single digits in more than a decade.
Screaming for a center, screaming for more than a center, James Higgins. You know, a lot of talk over the course of the year that James Higgins was a player that could challenge for first overall. I don't think that's the case any longer. But James Higgins is really smart. He had what I would call a really good, solid first season at Boston College. When I watch him play, I see Nico Hischier. And he's good enough defensively to be put into that category of player. I don't think he's going to be a 90-point guy in the NHL, but I think he's going to contribute offense. And boy, oh boy, do the Nashville Predators need a center that can create offense for their team.
Okay, that was Craig Button's mock draft on TSN. He has James Higgins at 5 to the Predators. Bad news if you're like me and you want James Higgins to the Predators. As of right now, the odds, FanDuel Sportsbook, they are going back in favor of Higgins, going at number 4 overall. Remember, at one point he was minus 340 to go at 4 overall. Then that dropped to 280. He's back to minus 310. So, again, if you bet $100, or excuse me, if you bet $310, you win $100 if he ends up going number 3. And as far as number 5 is concerned, excuse me, number 4, as far as number 5 is concerned, Caleb Desnoyers is now the favorite. So as opposed to he had the best odds, he is now a minus money favorite at minus 105. That is not a very strong conviction. At minus 105 to go 5th overall, Porter Martone is plus 230. And then Brady Martin and Higgins are plus 550 and Roger McQueen plus 900 to go to the Predators with the 5th overall pick. Now, some reporting to get out of the way. This comes from The Athletic. Scott Wheeler, 14 minutes ago, reporting saying the 2 teams to watch tonight are the Islanders and the Penguins. Though the Islanders general manager Matthew Darche has already made a big splash today with the Noah Dobson trade, they're going to try to make a push into the 4 to 7 range with eyes on local boy James Higgins. A deal with the Utah Mammoth, who have been talking to everybody about everything for weeks, would secure Schaefer and Higgins for the Islanders. That's not an easy move to make, but the Islanders have the assets if they can find somebody to play ball. Also, don't be surprised if the Penguins, who hold picks number 11 and 12, move into the top 10 tonight. So we did talk about, would you move back from 5 for 16 and 17 with the Islanders? And I've said no. We have not talked about, would you move back, with Pittsburgh for 11 and 12. And the Predators have worked a lot of deals with Pittsburgh lately. Of course, they worked the deal with Mikhail Granlund when David Poile was still the general manager. They worked the deal for Cody Glass last year. They worked the deal for, I believe it was, who was it? They got fleeced. It was the Bunting trade, where they sent Luke Schenn, and then the next day Pittsburgh turned around and traded Luke Schenn for a second rounder. So keep that in mind. Also, Corey Pronman from The Athletic says Roger McQueen is a major variable today due to his back injury. There are trades in the pipeline that are contingent on McQueen going in the top 10 or not. What that means is I think there are trades that, hey, if McQueen goes in the top 10, then we're not going to trade. We'll stay where we are and pick whomever. If McQueen doesn't go in the top 10, then we'll make a trade to move up to get him. So, again, this isn't the first we've heard of this. Barry Trotz told us on this show on Tuesday that Roger McQueen was a major wild card as far as the top of the draft is concerned. And I want to make sure I haven't missed anything else. Apparently, Corey Pronman says that there's a Russian goalie, Semyon Frolov, could go in the first round tonight. There is significant interest in the league in him. Who cares? Again, with 23 and 26 tonight, I don't care what they do. Do whatever you want. With 5, that's where it gets serious. So now it is prediction time. And now we're going to go through the first 5 picks in the draft tonight ahead of the 2025 NHL draft. This is the highest the Predators have picked. I've been on the radio here for 10 years. The Stillman and Company program will have its 10th anniversary, as in cheer to the GM and Stillman and Company, in August. And the Predators have never picked this high ever. So with that, we start at the very, very top of the draft with who goes number 1. That would be Matthew Schaefer to the Islanders. Everybody already knows you can't even bet on it. At FanDuel Sportsbook, you cannot bet on Matthew Schaefer being the number one pick in the draft. Everybody knows that's who the Islanders are going to take. And I will say this. Barry Trotz didn't say this to me, so I'm not reporting anything, but I did get the feeling at the end of the season, if the Predators had won the draft lottery, that they would have taken Schaefer even over Michael Misa. Though I would have yelled and screamed and said they got to take Michael Misa, I am of the belief that they may have taken Matthew Schaefer number one. San Jose takes Michael Misa. Now, I wonder what San Jose is going to do with Macklin Celebrini, Michael Misa, and Will Smith. You're going to have three great centermen right down the pipe, I guess. I guess they had Will Smith on the wing last year, but isn't that not getting the best out of Will Smith? That's just me. But Michael Misa, hands down, easy, the number 2 pick in the draft. Anton Frondell. I believe Hagens would be the pick here if he were 2 inches taller. He's not. Anton Frondell, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook, is minus 430 to go with that pick. And the only person even in shouting distance of Anton Frondell is Misa at plus 340. Misa is not going inside the top 2. I would be stunned if Misa doesn't go 2. So Frondell, that's easy at number 3. I hate it. James Hagens goes at number 4. I believe that Utah will knock I believe that the Islanders will knock Utah's socks off. And they will move up to number 4 ahead of the Predators to draft James Hagens because they know the Predators are going to take James Hagens. So I believe the Islanders will double dip here. I believe, and I don't know what it's going to cost them. Like, will it cost them Horvat? Will it cost them Barzal? I don't know. But they've already traded Noah Dobson. They've got the Avalanche's first-round pick next year, which can be deferred to 27. It will be James Hagens to the New York Islanders with the number 4 pick. I believe the Predators at number 5 will take Brady Martin. I believe that compete level is something that Barry Trotz just absolutely loves. And I believe that the organization is all agreed that if Hagens is there, he's the pick. He will go 1 pick before. And I think that they will then take Brady Martin over to Noyer, who's probably a more talented player, because Brady Martin competes harder, and over Martone because this is the chance to get a center. I know, well, if he's the best player, he's the best player. I get it. But the Predators haven't had a number 1 center in 25 years. So I think they're taking a center. And I put me down. I think it'll be Brady Martin. And I do not think the Predators will trade anything tonight. I think it will be Brady Martin at 5, and they'll pick at 23, and they'll pick at 26. That's my official prediction. And my guarantee that they will not trade. They will use all 3 picks in those spots. That's it for us. We are out of here. Bridgestone Arena is the scene. Draft night in Smashville is next. Max Hirsch, Robbie Stanley will react Monday at 2. Good job.